But do you often wonder, or do you sometimes wonder if there's anything you do as a guy that women don't like? Have you ever thought, why is it that it's so difficult for me to connect with ladies? You're about to find out some of those things on the show today, because we are going to be talking about the things that men do that we women don't like. And speaking about we women, I have a full house of beautiful ladies today. So let's just go through. I'm going to pan around and have everyone introduce themselves, starting with...
Yeah, my name is Devan. It's good to be with you. Thank you.
My name is Cheryl. It's a privilege to be here, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic time.
Great.
My name is Chi, and I'm so happy to be here today.
Last but not the least, Dr. Jennifer, call me Dr. B. Nice to be here.
Yeah. You can tell you're in for a great time. Just stay right there. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the conversation takes off proper.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take his pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start up the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And the other one said, I think it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. I got tired of all that.
Thank you for being there. Welcome back. It is the conversation on NTA Network. And I said we're talking about the things that women, girls, ladies don't like about men. Okay. Maybe the things they do that ladies don't like. Not that we don't like men. Or do we?
Well, I like men a lot.
You do?
I like men
That's
a
good
lot.
to know.
But of course, like the topic says, there are some things that they do. There are things women do that I don't like too. So this is just what men do that, like for me specifically, I'll go straight to, for me, what's the most disturbing bit?
That a man would do that you do not like.
Yeah, that men seem to have an issue with generally. Notice I use the word seem to. I don't like the fact that it seems as if a large number of men have difficulty controlling themselves sexually. And why do I put it that way? So many instances you find yourself with a male in circumstances that should ordinarily be innocent. In the daytime, you're not necessarily indecently dressed. This is somebody who... Yeah,
even if that does not give
with,
anyone an excuse, but
yeah, but
fine.
still, you have dealings with this person. Maybe he's your boss. Maybe he's just somebody you went to see for something or to pick something up and everything. And you're done having that conversation. You're walking out the door and the person follows you up and grabs your bottom or, you know, an unsolicited tight hug, and this person is a stranger. Somebody like trying to plant a kiss on you know, plant a peck on you that you're just meeting, you just met 5 minutes ago, and you're like, okay, what was it about my demeanor that gave this person the idea that I really wanted them to grab my bottom or touch my breasts or try to plant it? You know, you understand. And that invasion of personal space seems to me like something men take for granted that it's okay for them to do, when they know fully that if somebody else did it to their wife or their sister, they wouldn't like it. But when it's somebody else's wife or sister, you're fair
to do
game.
that.
It's okay to do that because there's no link between you and her. But if somebody else does that to your wife or your sister, you'll get upset. The other time in Lagos, there was this crowd of women that went through a particular market chanting, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." And at first the men mocked them and were like, "I get your type for house." There's this entitlement mentality, As
That
when I
all
was
men
younger,
have.
that many men have.
Okay.
When I was younger, I couldn't go to the market because walking past any set of stalls that had men as the shopkeepers meant I would be grabbed.
Groping.
For as long as I was in that market, I was going to get grabbed.
Okay.
And I don't like it. That's the main thing I really
So
don't like.
yours is more of the physical
Yes.
thing about men
Yes.
wanting to get in contact with you,
Yeah, yeah.
unsolicited.
Thank
Is that
you.
the word?
Unsolicited.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's hear from
Yeah,
Sheila.
for me, a lot of things, I also don't like that. No, I'm not sure any woman likes that. But for me, it's what I see first. So I do not like men that are not well groomed. I don't imagine whatever position you assume in life or attain in life. I see you the first thing. The sight matters. The first, impression really matters. I'm meeting you for the first time. I'm seeing your nails, some dirt underneath. You smell woozy, OBMO. I can't stand that. No matter how nice you are, and that's why, just as your introduction did state, no wonder you're a very nice guy. But women are not just coming your way. Maybe you have to take care of that body odor. We call it BO. Maybe the mouth odor is very offensive. You've got to take care of it. And all of these things are very difficult for people to tell you, except those that are very close to you and those that really love you. Many other things you can say about.
Chi.
For me, it's more of the perception, how men view women. Like the Van was saying, when, for instance, the women marched in Lagos, the men started chanting, "I get your type for house." So these days, especially in our culture, when men interact with women, they have this mentality of looking down on the woman, feeling you're inferior. So you're a woman, you should not, I don't even want to waste my time with you, you're a woman. As if being a woman is a curse. As if being a woman had some negative connotations to it. So it affects the way they interact with us, mentally, in business, even in the family, because they look at you and feel this person is inferior, this gender is inferior, so I have to deal with this person as an inferior gender to me. And it cuts across every dealings of man and women. But that's something I don't like about it. If you see me as who I am. Interact with me as
first
a
and
person
foremost.
first. Don't see the gender. Leave out the gender. Deal with me first. If I'm intellectually sound, deal with me like that. If I have something to offer, deal with me because I have something to offer. No, don't deal with me because you feel, let me have sympathy on her because she's a woman. No, don't do that to me. Deal with me as an individual. And men do that a lot. It doesn't matter who, young, old, rich, poor. It cuts across all sector of the male gender. And I really honestly don't like that.
Doctor?
As I've been sitting here and I'm listening to these beautiful ladies give their perception and their view about the topic we're talking about now. If we have been watching the news, social media, and all of that, there's something that is happening for the past 2-3 years now.
Okay.
It started in America and it's gradually filtering into other countries. What is it? The hashtag Me Too movement.
Oh, yeah.
It started with who? Harvey Weinstein, the big Hollywood mogul.
I think he's committed
the
suicide.
icon. No, he's alive. A different
He's
guy.
not the
That guy
same
committed
guy.
Okay,
suicide.
some other
Yeah.
person.
A billionaire that was
Yeah,
accused
okay,
of
yeah.
sexual
I was getting
impropriety
them
committed
mixed up, yeah.
suicide. Now it started with Harvey, and then the Me Too hashtag movement started, and slowly it's taking shape and taking form. It's all about sexual and gender-based violence and the culture of silence. That is my own peeve when it comes to men. The fact that they think that they can take whatever they want, anytime, any place, any day. It sickens me to my core. And the one that sickens me even more is the group of people that we call pedophiles.
Oh,
The people that cannot get it up, except is the baby. Babies as young as 6 months, as young as three days.
That's so tragic. I don't even know.
That is my peeve. Sexual and gender-based violence. I'm not even talking just about the sexual part of the sexual and gender-based violence. I'm talking about the violent part too.
whether domestic or
statistics
anywhere
put it
else,
that 1 in 3 women
have been abused in some
will
way.
be abused one way or the other within their lifespan or during their lifespan. But I do not agree with that statistic, I'm sorry to say. I think it is 1 in 1. If I ask you,
That's
you,
harsh.
and you,
No, it's
from
real.
childbirth until the age you are now, you would give me an instance of being inappropriately groped
Yeah.
by
yeah.
one guy or the
At
other.
the very least.
Whether it's your father, a cousin, a nephew, a random stranger, the gate man, something. In the guise of giving you a hug, someone will grab your breast.
Yeah.
In the guise of saying, oh, nice to meet you, someone will give you a funny squeeze.
Scratch the palm.
Like, or can we see later?
I'm going to tell you the first time I got a squeeze
You
on
will
my
see a
palm.
guy, when you look towards his south side, his external genitalia is saying good morning for no reason. I understand that men are visual. I understand
Very,
that.
right?
But come on, can we keep it in the pants, please? Can we keep it in the pants, please? Now, when we do the rounds again to talk about what other things we do not like, I want us to situate it to the men in our lives, to the men that we have had the chance, I don't want to say privilege, of interacting with, whether the ones we're living with right now as our husbands or boyfriends we've had in the past, or brothers and cousins and all of that. I can tell you that the list is a laundry list of things. Do you want to talk about going to the toilets, taking a pee, and don't put the seat back down? You don't flush. You come. The list is endless. Let's.
There is something I think I think we should still talk
endless.
about that has not been mentioned.
Yes,
The I have money attitude.
I'm entitled.
It shows everywhere. Music videos, movies, I can afford you attitude that men have. If you listen to the lyrics of music, the message you get is, so long as you have money,
Anything goes.
you can get any woman you want.
Money talks and
Right.
right works.
Exactly. So long as you have money, even adverts that you see, you always will hear a script that reads, and the guy sent call credit to the girl. You've never heard a girl sending call credits. Well, sometimes I'm now seeing mothers or fathers or children sending to their parents, but it's always this attitude of, I don't have a problem with men having money. They should have money, as a matter of fact. So should a woman, as far as I'm concerned, right? But oftentimes, there's this perception that you need to have money, and once you have money, then you can have every woman. How do you react to that? Is that something that is acceptable?
It's a societal issue.
It's societal.
But it's
And
in
cultural too.
and cultural, yeah?
Yeah.
Because
that's the put off for me where men
you
are.
see, let me come into this. Some parents are sending their daughters into prostitution.
Yes.
Whether knowingly
I could give you,
or
I can give
unknowingly.
you a help for
Knowingly,
saying
if you're a
that.
parent, you know.
That is a fact.
When you expect a student to pay a younger one's school fees, where do you want her to get the money from? It's 2 things. You want her to steal it, you want her to give out her body to a man and bring the money home. Even when I was in university, I had any number of friends who in year 1 were taking care of things like granddaddy's burial, my 3
Younger
brother,
ones,
my
yeah.
younger siblings' school fees.
Yeah.
Were
With
they
parents,
working
living
students?
parents, both living which
Working
dirty
in
work-
Nigeria?
working-
How
I worked. When I was in school, I
How much
worked.
were you
My-
earning
my-
that you would take care of
those
a
girls
boy
were not
and 3
working.
younger ones in
Those
school?
girls were not working. How much are you earning?
How much
that
are you
you're
earning?
paying the school fees of 3 people in primary school and secondary school. So parents, I don't know what
Including your
is
school
wrong.
fees.
I don't know where we started getting things wrong, but from mid-teenage now, many parents, men, male, female, daddies, mummies, they're very happy to start suggesting. In fact, there are parents who will specifically send their daughter to a predator's home,
Knowing what will happen.
knowing what will happen.
Yes.
Because they know some compensation will come back.
Yes.
So this is highly it's a society and culture thing, right?
Because
Yeah,
let me
with
give
culture.
let me give you
And
a
it's,
real life
when you say
example.
culture, this is not just a Nigerian thing.
Yeah, what I want to say
It's
about culture
everywhere,
is, for
most
instance,
places actually.
unfortunately for us in this part of the world, not even just this part of the world, in most societies, women are not empowered.
They're not.
They've not been empowered. We've not been empowered for the longest time. So as a result of this, we're dependent on the man. And it's still ongoing. A lot of women are dependent on the man. And that is why the men now have this belief that I am rich.
Let me bring this question. We're not even just talking about economic empowerment now. We're talking about self-worth.
Yeah.
Because if you know your self-worth, then you will not give your bodies out for peanuts. You will not give your body out for peanuts.
That's for the guy that's even very rich
Let
and
me
feels that,
even
I mean,
say
you can get
let me
anything.
tell you a quick story about parents sending their children to predator homes so that the man will get enticed. And of course, one thing will lead to the other, and it will start, you have a sexual relationship going on, and then it will be a tit for tat matter, right? The man gives you the money, you spread your legs. A young girl left the village. Her mom sent her to go and be a domestic staff in a wealthy home. And these people are well known in the part of the country where they are from. Big family, very wealthy, well educated, well exposed, well traveled. The elite of the elite, the creme de la creme, so to speak. This young girl, her mother said to her, when you go there, your mission is not to be a domestic staff. Your mission is to become wife number two. If possible, throw the first wife out. Now, how is she going to accomplish that? Because the man is known to have a roving eye. How is she going to accomplish that? You must not wear a skirt that covers
you too much.
Yes, you must be above your knee. Strapless, sleeveless tops, no bra. Young, beautiful girl, tall, slim, light-skinned. She comes to the house. Good morning, ma. Good morning, sir. Madam is looking at her. Alarm bells. They call the lady that they normally call that takes care of the nannies when they come. Go give her personal hygiene stuff, the deodorants and all of that. Buy her underwear and buy her the kind of clothes that she will wear. The lady said, please go and change your dress. That is not a nice dress. No. Her mother said this is what she must wear every day.
She said, why is she still in the house now? That one is really young.
Her mother said,
very naive.
My mother said I must wear a skirt that is this length.
Wow.
I must not wear a bra.
Wow.
And I must wear a sleeveless top.
That's alarming.
The madam said, okay, no problem. You can stay the way you are. Go to the room. No problem. The chef, give her something. Make sure she doesn't come out of the room. Give her something to eat. The next morning, when they were going to drop the kids.
That's word back.
They shipped her back.
Enter the car. Driver, the other nanny, bring her things. Put it in the boot. Drop the kids off in school. Take her to the park. Give her transport money. Give her money to dash. Stay Naira.
Now, doesn't that just drag us back to the van when you said, because the only reason anyone will come up with a plot like that is because they believe the man will react.
Yes.
They cannot control themselves.
Yes.
This is what she said she does not like about men.
He has a reputation for being like that. The womanizer.
You see, I have been privy to hearing women, listen, nobody is sitting here trying to say women are saints.
No, we are not.
Today we're talking about what women
Today the lens
don't like about men.
Yes.
Today the lens is on men.
Yes.
But I have heard instances of women saying, I will bed that man.
Yes.
And it happens.
Of course.
Because the man will not be able
Then
to control himself.
People begin to talk about witchcraft.
Oh my
and
goodness.
juju and, no, it's not. I know of instances of women who wangled their way into relationships with men simply by pop up in the man's office. You've already established that the guy is the jittery type. Haji, it's been a while. That day after you dropped me, you didn't call me again. This man has never laid eyes on you. Instead of him to say, I'm sorry, my sister, who are you? I'm sorry, I can't. It's been a while, because he has been around so much that he doesn't want to hurt your feelings. Or probably somebody he has done something with. So he just flows with these. Hey, yeah, it's true. How is Mama? I hope she's fine. And before you said, last time you said you would find a job for my younger sister.
She'll make a good actress, will she?
And before you know it, it's true, I forgot. It's where was it again? I said I was going to. You said you drop her CV at. Oh, you are right. Just bring it tomorrow. He just had a full conversation with somebody he's never laid eyes on.
Yes.
But not because she knows the kind of person he is.
He's taking advantage of that.
And she has taken
victim.
advantage of it, and anything sinister will happen.
But
from
don't you
that
guys
day
think it's because of the biological makeup of the men, and also the common belief that men are moved by what they feel?
What does that mean?
For women, it's more difficult for a woman to
Be aroused.
to be aroused if she does not feel something inside. But the men don't necessarily need to feel something inside. We're not justifying. I'm not.
I was going to say, are you justifying?
I'm not making an excuse. I'm saying
it's a very good angle.
This is what majority of them. This is how the majority of them react. But now it is now on how you control yourself. Your maybe with sexuality, the male hormone is stronger than the female hormone.
I think
so.
it's
You now have to
true.
control it.
I think
It's
so.
your self control that now kicks in. How you're able to control yourself. That it's now the question, and not if under normal circumstances without a man doing anything. If you place him here and place a woman, we now want to compare who would fall, who will give in than the other, who will give in first. The man will definitely give in first, but that it's you have self control.
Okay,
Because some men do have the self-control.
Exactly. Some do, but okay. I want to take us to
That's a
another.
very small percentage.
I want to take us to another area now before we go home, because we need to talk about what happens in the house, about the throwing of towels and not clearing the bath and not wanting to do this and that. We need to get there.
I can't
but,
wait.
but before we get there, let's talk about this. I don't know. I'm sure almost everyone seated here must have experienced that, especially if you're married. How do you deal with men, especially married men, who like to prey on other women who are also married? Like, I'm married, right? Sometimes you even know my husband, and you're hitting on me. Who does that?
I think some men feel that that's the cleverest way of going about it.
That one of the richest men in the world right now, Jeff Bezos. I hope I'm pronouncing
Is
his
it
name
richer
properly.
than Bill Gates?
Yes.
Oh, he's number one on the billionaires list.
I remember he gave some to his wife and still.
This is the
Is that the Walmart or Amazon? Okay, no brand.
This is the only
Amazon. Yeah.
He gave his wife a cool $22 billion
And it's still the richest man on earth.
in divorce settlements. Their divorce settlement. What caused the
I
divorce?
like that kind of money.
He had been secretly having a clandestine
Dating another man's
affair
wife.
with his best friend's wife.
Best friend, though.
No, it's
Not even acquaintance.
No, the friend thought
Long time
he was
family
the best
friend.
friend. He obviously isn't.
And this
From
lady
what we know
is
now.
a TV personality,
Oh, Father Lord.
Oh, God.
the same age as the wife. She makes him
Glam.
She makes him crazy. This and that and that and that. He's been married for 25 years. Their last child just went off to Stanford or Harvard or somewhere. That brings me back to your question. What is the attraction?
Oh, it's a big. Remember that Simon Cowell actually had the child with his best
Friend, wife. Yeah. And
For me,
basically,
I do not know if it's proximity. Proximity. Something.
Proximity also
No,
plays a
it's
part.
not about proximity. I think there are a lot of men who are put off by women who have kids.
Dr. B, let me tell you one thing I've noticed
Yes.
over time. I realize that most of the times when we are friends, it happens with women as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
They seem to like your friend's husband, not love him, not covet him. Don't get me wrong.
No, I
That is
agree
well
with that.
behaved,
Okay.
treats the family well. And you'll be like, okay, this is a good example of what a man should be.
You're comparing
Not-
person with your own
Hold
partner.
on. Yeah, let me tell you,
that's what I'm saying.
don't compare.
and then you
But
start
we know,
adjusting.
we know that it is natural for us to compare.
Yeah.
Human instinct.
The question is, do you voice out that comparison? That's where I have a problem.
And you take the next step.
behind it.
Yes.
So what I'm driving at is a man sees the wife, the friend's wife, and is well behaved and is pretty. Maybe there's no justification.
Yes, there is. none.
Basically, but it's just that this covetousness, you can't define it. It just comes with some men. They themselves can't tell you, because by the time you catch them, many of them are very remorseful. They're like, I'm sorry.
They're even going to report themselves to the wives.
Yes.
You better not.
And they tell you
Let me deliver.
If I didn't find out.
You see, in our
spend,
times, in our environment, if that happens, God forbid, right? Man A is married, Lady B is married, and something happens between them. It might be okay for man A to decide, no, I'm so sorry, I'm going to tell my wife. She will get mad and be like, what will I do? It's my husband now. But what would happen
If it were,
If it was Lady B, because at some point, if that happened, then definitely there will be a reveal on this end. If you ever wonder,
the question why all of them do it is because it's
that script
safer.
has not been written.
If the woman is married
safer.
and you're married,
they feel it's safer.
It's safer.
than a single person who wants the lady out, and maybe because you know your wife is special. She's special, you know, but then you want to misbehave. You know, when you go to a single lady, she has a motive.
Yeah.
She wants something, but a married woman does not just think in return. They sleep with married women. They know she has nothing extra to ask for, to demand for. She wants to protect her marriage. I mean, protecting her marriage, she won't be a loudmouth.
Yeah.
She don't tell social media she's sleeping with you. So why not date a married woman who will not tell on me than marry a single woman who wants me to kick my wife
But
out?
the good thing,
And let the world know.
you know what? I'm sorry. Before the one good thing is that I know is that no friend of your husband will date you without your consent.
Of course.
Of
And
course not.
so, as we're talking about men, we're talking about ourselves. But you're my husband's friend, right? I don't date you unless I want to date you.
Yes.
You can't date me under duress. I will not date you.
That scenario is changing.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? A married woman who is in a relationship or who is in a marriage that is unhappy, that dates or sleeps with her best friend or her husband's friend, is looking to switch places.
Dr. B, what
It's
I
changing.
so wait, Dr. B,
Divorce their wives to marry
Go and
their
marry
best
somebody
friend.
else.
what I was going to say
in like
before,
Nigeria?
before you came
In Nigeria,
Just a minute, sweetie.
we have that going on in Nigeria.
That is where you're sleeping with your husband's friend and you're thinking, oh, she's in her own marriage, she doesn't want to leave. Those days are
No, you know about my husband's friend. Can be anybody.
No, I'm not
Sadly.
I mean, can generally can be anybody. Not the person.
Those days are gone. I have a personal experience where a man a lady set out to get this man. She's a divorcee, 5 kids, 5 grandkids, looks good for her age,
Grandmother.
has a government appointment. But she set out to get this young man who is younger than she is,
Grandma of 5.
whose wife is younger than she is, who has 2 kids, all the kids are below 15. But this woman set out to get this man. And
she
this
did?
woman took her phone and called this man's wife and said to her, I'm here to stay.
Wow.
Was she living in the, I'm here to.
No, I'm here to stay. Meaning,
I'm coming here over.
I'm here to stay.
I'm here to take your
I have
man.
no business with you. I have business with my man.
Okay, let me tell you.
We don't as her man.
See, if Devon is on the receiving end on that call, here's what will happen. I'll be like, sweetheart, you're welcome to him. I mean, like, if he's that much of a bad person, that you guys are suited to each other. What am I doing in the picture?
And you can't even
I mean, like, whoever went to help you.
You might just have it. Your man might
I will.
let him go. That's what I was saying.
Why would I let you know? The life that we live in
No,
is not
no,
the time where your husband cheats on you and you grab your bag and say, I'm leaving.
See,
Okay,
wait. There are different
Devon.
levels.
Hello, guys.
This is a level of discussion that I've never heard of before. It's a grandmother.
Lady.
The kind of women that go and throw your name in the ocean because of a man.
Tell all those side chicks, tell all those side mamas that if you are so self-made,
Yeah.
you're so wealthy, because this is kind of the thing that the woman was telling this lady, I'm self-made, I'm this and that, go and ask about me. If you're so self-made, you're so sexy, you're so wealthy, you're so beautiful, you're a grandma and all of that, why don't you have your own man? Why are you chasing after a young man that you're older than?
That is not.
But you said she's a widow.
And you want to, she's not a widow, she's a divorcee.
Okay.
So her husband is alive.
Let's leave it there. Before we move to what
Yeah.
before we move to what happens at home and all that, here's an advice for all the men listening now. Whether you are in this practice or not, it's easy for other men to lay hands on your
your
wife
wives. Yes,
when you
please.
do not appreciate her.
Yes.
When you don't tell her she looks good, when you don't take care of her. If a woman is starved of commendation, affection,
Just basic
if she
affection.
gets it somewhere else, she gets to the office, someone will be like, oh, you look good, your hair is nice, and you didn't see it before she left the house. What are you looking
I'm
at?
telling you.
Love that woman, though.
One man
Advice.
needs another man's poison.
Free advice from the ladies. Love
One
her.
man's
Tell how you do and show how you do. Now let's go home.
No, you see,
She's another man's wealth.
you see where I was coming from when she gave that story. I'm like, I'll be quickly out of that picture. You know why? These old women, yeah,
They can
because
go
it's like
all
the
out.
grandmother.
Yes.
They can
These
go
old
all
women.
out.
when that babe follows you up with one juju like that, when she gets hold of your picture, puts it inside one bottle.
Only go
Let them go and throw it inside one river. I don't know. I'm not allowed to find out. That's why
That is when you know that greater is
I don't want to
picture bottle. Is that a knowledge?
I know.
But then you have assassins.
See,
They can actually send an
not leave
physical
the
assassin.
whole point
to you.
is I don't want to find out whether it works.
How do you get now?
There must be a reason they keep showing it on Nollywood. Maybe it has worked for other people before.
All right.
Let my destiny.
What I know is that greater is he that is in me.
Yes.
It does not matter where you take my photo. I'm speaking for me.
See, ba?
It does not matter where you take my photo to. That's a picture.
Sometimes,
Tell me.
That can easily be gotten on social media.
Exactly.
Sometimes victory is assured when you toe the path of least resistance.
Wisdom is profitable to direct, right?
Because the woman, alarm bells will go off in her head. The woman didn't even put up a fight though. Am I sure if she's not even trying to hang on to the man, you see what it, you understand? But when, I will deal with you, I will show you, need to help people. You have ginger, I will tell you, collect the man. Collect them.
But what about the kids?
The place I'll go and solve your
Because you're
matter,
not
nobody will be
thinking
there.
about just yourself. You know,
But then the men
Okay.
and
This is a good time for us to take a break. We need to go on a break. I'm thirsty. Now, I'm sure you've been having a good time. We are, if you are, cheers to that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we
I
come
mean,
back,
like,
we'll try to conclude this conversation. Stay right there.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell. And there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take his pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start up the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like hurry up with this business. And the other one said, I think it's not about me, it's about the guys. They're not ready to marry.
If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. There was a day I got tired of all that.
Welcome back to the conversations here on NTA Network. My name is Rita. We have been talking about what ladies, men, girls, no, where did men come into that equation? Okay, we have been talking about what ladies, girls, and women, whichever group you belong to, do not like about men. And there's been quite a lot. But we want to bring it home right now and ask about the little things that men do in the house that we do not like. For instance, have you ever wondered why some men cannot finish using the towel and just hang it back somewhere in the bathroom? Why would they have to throw it on the bed? Little things like that I put off. Let's have a list of the things in that area that probably you do not like. Let's start from Doug this time around.
Okay, please. I've been dying to say something because it's okay. Have you ever wondered why a grown man with a wife and kids will go to the toilet, the lavatory, to ease himself, to do number one, to pee, right? He takes the seat up, flips out that thing. The moment he starts peeing, he flushes the toilet, right? The toilet does its own bit. The flushing is done before the pee is done. And 2 liters of water is wasted. The pee is still there.
Oh my goodness.
He doesn't put the seat back down. He doesn't reflush. He doesn't wash his hands. He walks away.
That's why I don't like shaking men, by the way.
So you see, you got the picture?
I literally I can picture it.
Peeing, he's flushing. The flushing thing is done.
Why would you flush before you're done?
10 liters of water wasted. Toilet seat still up. Pee still in there. Hand not washed. Walks away. Now, in the typical toilet in my home, for example, you have the toilet brush with the holder. You have the toilet liquid washing soap and all the other things in there. This man goes into the toilet, does the number 2. What I mean by that is he defecates, right? Flushes it. He stands up. He sees that there's got fecal particle all there, all up in there. The toilet brush is looking at you. The liquid soap is looking at you. The sink is looking at you. You do not use the air freshener. There's water, sweetie. You do not use the air freshener to dilute the air or to freshen up the air. You do not reflush. You do not use the brush or the soap. You do not wash your hands. You walk away.
The house help will do that.
Or the woman will do it. Wait now. You do it upstairs in your own personal bathroom. You do it downstairs in the guest toilet. Come on. And you are expecting guests or there are guests in the house. Which one you do now?
Okay, that's number 1.
Should I go on?
Let's move to Chief first. So we can go around. She's looking at you like, what's wrong? Do you feel like a movie director would want to put that in a scene?
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Okay, adding to what she just said, the part 2 of the same individual doing number 1 and peeing is you're responsible. You decide to wait to finish peeing before flushing, but then because you whip that thing out, you have drops on the sitter, and rather than use like a tissue, whatever it is, clean it up, flush it along, you leave it there, and then I come into the toilet, I want to use the restroom, and I see, but then it's dry, I see green color, yellowish color on that, and I have to do the job. That's terrible. I'm touching your stuff. I shouldn't be doing that. This should have been something you would have done.
Someone will say, nice, it's your husband.
Or you want to, because you feel you're the man, you now decide, oh, I can fart around. I was like, there's nothing about it. Just,
okay.
I mean,
you said it. Did you expect him to take an excuse and go to the restroom to fart?
Excuse me. You don't believe me.
Go quiet. Little girl with you.
Go and do your business.
Go and use the toilet.
To fart?
Yes.
Go and do your business.
you don't need to make. I don't listen to that sound.
Oh my goodness. No, I'm sounding like someone we both know. Oh my goodness.
Okay, nobody likes that. Especially, men's farts. It's another topic for another day. It carries some...
No, it's really strange. Because I can't relate to that one. Like, I think this is the free will out of you.
Okay, there's a particular thing we know many men to be very, very guilty of, and that's throwing their shoes and stockings all over. Maybe men are going to be better, not throwing it around, but they can just, it's just someone that have those smelly feet and keep it for you in the living room. Women don't like it. We know you're tired from work. We know that you've had a very long day. You bring food to the table. You're a responsible husband. Some wives can come get in Yoruba. Let me help you, pull off your shoes. But the truth of the matter is, if you're grooming, just as I said at the beginning of the show, a man's got to be groomed. And it's not when it's comfortable for you. It's not when it's convenient for you. It must be a kind of, you've programmed yourself as you're entering the house. Hello, hi, sweetie. You're walking, you're pulling your shoes because your kids are even watching. Your sons are watching.
Yes.
Your daughters are watching as well. They know that you're a proper man. And if you're supposed to help the family, it's better you start with that. My dad does things. And so we do that. That's the leader of the house. I think women don't like it. We don't complain most of the times, but sure when it's smelly.
And feet do smell when they stay in your shoe for so long.
It's the androgen and the testosterone.
Yeah, you guys are making me feel as if I have a saint in the house.
Oh my God.
The one...
Even in the office.
Okay.
Yes.
No, in the office.
Yeah, my father doesn't smell. So,
like that. But generally, a general complaint, a general domestic complaint is this wet towel on the bed thing. And most men are quite hairy. So, when you use a towel as a female, most times, except you wash your hair, if you use a towel, it's just maybe halfway near damp. But men, because most of them tend to be pretty hairy with a lot of chest hair, and they always wash their hair with every bath. By the time they're done, you can squeeze water out of that towel. And the next thing, bam, it goes on the bed. The bed, your what do you call it? Your bed sheets are not waterproof. So if you leave that towel there for long enough, it will soak through, leave a damp spot on the mattress. And when that becomes a pattern, before you know it, there's going to be a smell. That's a major complaint generally. Toilet habits are a major complaint. Especially, there are some men, I understand, who defecate and don't flush. I don't know what that's about.
They forget. Yeah.
Excuse me?
Truly,
Forget.
No, sweetheart,
the men's side on this show.
No. Let me land.
Forget, but is it a good thing to forget? You shouldn't.
You
hang
forget
on.
365 days.
Hang on, let's
Every single day, right?
Because I have to excuse myself. I forget. I always.
once in a
The
while.
next thing is what are you paying the maid for?
Once in
That's
a
the next
while.
thing.
Ah, come on.
I feel
No, I said,
I know.
I don't even want to see my poop.
once in a while, I feel that
Yeah.
it's possible to forget. Once in a while, like maybe you finish your business and maybe the water system hasn't filled up properly. You give it a couple of
And you
dozen
say,
minutes.
"Let
So
me
you
wash
quickly
my
take your
hands
shower or whatever, and then you fall. It can happen in any
Vivian,
situation.
I don't agree
No,
with
hang on,
you.
let me land.
Every bathroom has a bucket.
Let me,
If the flusher is not
let
full,
me
just
make
fetch
my
bucket
point. Let me
and
make my
flush
point.
it.
It happens to me. It happens to me. It happens to me. Once in a while, it can happen. Maybe you flush and maybe the water isn't, and you're like, okay, it will
Let me
fill
just
up.
take
And
my
then
bath and-
before it fills up, you're out there. And
yeah.
once in a while it happens. I'm ready to excuse once in a while.
Once, okay.
What I'm not ready to excuse is every single day. Even if you grew up in the deepest, darkest village and you got used to doing your business in the bush, where you just finish and use a leaf and then leave. Now, brother, you don't pass through university. You have a white-collar job. You're living where decent, human, regular people are. There's water coming into the house. Dude, form a habit. It's not very difficult. Do this when you're done. That's it. Don't leave it for anybody. And I particularly find it distasteful. I don't leave any chore for my house help that I cannot do for myself.
Yes.
And it's a habit I'm trying to inculcate in my kids.
Yes.
If you don't like cleaning up your own mess in the toilet, imagine how it feels
For someone else.
for somebody else to have to come and do it.
Yeah.
So if you mess that space up, there's water. There's a toilet brush. Every toilet in the room, in the house has a toilet brush.
Yes.
There's the
And the soap.
liquid soap thing.
Yes,
It does
beside
not
it.
take 30 seconds to get that business done.
Exactly.
Why are you allowing it to dry up and cake up because there's a maid?
Okay,
And
it goes
that's
to
a
the situation.
Please, before you go on, let's just finish this topic. Even if you do not want to use a toilet brush, a lot of toilets are in the bathroom, right? Together.
Yeah.
You have the shower stall or the jacuzzi or the bathtub, yeah? And most toilets have buckets and the bailer, the little bowl. If you take that little bowl, put water in there, raise it up a bit and drop it on the
Yeah, usually the pressure of water.
That's
That's all of that.
That's a lesson on how to keep your toilet clean, man.
If the toilet is not flushing, you have a bucket, fill it up with water and flush it. Please,
There's
just
one more
finish that
thing.
business.
There's one more thing. You know, usually we'll deal with this as a topic, men not wanting to help at home, domestic assistance, if you know what I mean. It's believed that some of those chores are supposed to be a woman's duty. The woman is supposed to cook, you're supposed to wash, you're supposed to clean. Some people are getting to the stage where they feel like we shouldn't have a maid because there are now issues about how legal it is. Those children, were they, properly, taken away from their parents? Are they being, what's the word
Forced
now?
into labor.
Exactly.
Forced labor.
Is it forced labor? So some people are deliberately saying, if I don't know this person, I don't want to help, except it's an adult that I can negotiate with and pay. But you have situations where in a home, right, where there is a help or there is no help. The man feels like he has no responsibility whatsoever to domestic activities, right?
I know such
He
men.
eats. You cook the food, the woman cooks the food, you lay the food on the table, he will eat and get up and just leave the dishes there because it is a woman's job. Or the house can be dirty for the world, he couldn't be bothered about cleaning anything. Or the kids need to go to school, you're going to work, he's going to work, you have to prep the kids for school. It is the woman's responsibility to get up earlier, to make the lunch boxes, to make sure the children take their bath, to dress them up, and sometimes even take them to school before she goes to work. All he has to do is stretch up in the morning, take his bath, dress up, and goes to work and comes back tired and asks you, you went to work, oh, what's for dinner?
You forgot to ask how what's for breakfast.
Oh, of course, you have to. You don't just do lunch boxes. You have to make breakfast
What's for
too.
breakfast?
But I do know that quite a number of men these days are hands-on. They help with these things. But we still have men who feel, now, let's not lay emphasis on the fact that the woman works. Most women now work in addition to that. Even if she does not work, right? I think, is that even how to say it? Even if she does not go out to work.
Housewife.
Exactly. She's a stay-at-home mom. Is it right? Is it even, can you tolerate having a man who feels that's your job? You belong to, let's not complete the phrase. Right? How do you deal with it? I can't relate.
Okay.
I know a man who believes so much that these chores are specifically tailored to women. That the wife went to jog one morning, leaving the baby at home with the husband, no nanny at that time. The baby was screaming her head off. The man, 2 or 3 things make a baby cry: hungry, wet, want to sleep, right? Instead of the man to say, okay, let's see if the diaper is wet. If you have no idea about changing the diaper, just remove it. Do whatever you can. You defecate yourself, you pee, you clean up yourself. The same method of cleaning yourself, you can clean the child. The man calls the gate man to come and clean the 10-month-old baby and change the diaper. And when the woman comes back, the woman says, the man is happy to say, oh, the baby was crying, we changed the diaper was wet with fecal matter and poo and pee, and then we changed the diaper. The woman says, who is we? Says, oh, I called the gate man to clean the baby up.
I'm in shock.
And the woman is like,
Your own child?
what did you say? The man says, what is there? And turns the thing into a big quarrel. The woman is still in shock, like holding her head. You called the gate man, the 20-something-year-old gate man, to come and clean your baby, your 10-month-old baby, and you are 40-something years old. And you said, what is there? You were there all the time. The baby was being cleaned. Is that not, are you not inviting the gate man to violate that child at some point?
Especially if it's a child, is even
It's a girl.
Even boys get violated. It's not just
the man believes so much that these are responsibilities for the woman.
That's a really shocking story.
The person
Yeah.
you mentioned about men expecting you to pack their tables, some of the things they feel they're entitled to.
So let's get something wrong. It's something right. There's nothing wrong with women doing that.
Nothing.
I don't have a problem doing it. But the fact that you make it's your job to do it.
Exactly, your department.
That's where I'm coming. That do you know that we do have a culture in this part of the world, and that's the honest truth.
Yes.
There are some things that are traditionally, expected of women to do for their men. I'm from a home that I never saw my father clear the table after eating, and my mom would never wait for that.
Same here.
And I wouldn't expect my husband, I'm sorry to say, you may differ, to clear the table. So why does he have a wife? I'm not his.
But if he does, will you have a problem with it? That's the question.
I think where I thought you were coming from was when it becomes a situation where it seems almost as if the man is helpless or a baby.
Landing on.
If madam is not in a position to clear the dishes,
Would you?
do you fall over dead if you do it yourself?
That's where I actually was driving at. You should do it. It gets to a point where when you this is your house, you do it. Most women even love to do it. Oh, darling, let me do this for you. But what is love? We don't complain, no women. Do you know?
It's culture. There's somebody, you and I think we were on that conversation together. A colleague at one time said if he goes to his brother's house and sees his brother sweeping,
he will tie him with a rope and call his father and say, this man has gone mad.
Anyway, he said, because they see it as a taboo. But when married, they don't get enough sexual satisfaction in the house. One major reason is because the woman is usually not in the mood because she's too tired. So when you assist her with domestic chores, she stays that she's doing something, maybe even not doing something, and you just want to help her. You don't put her.
These same men who are, let's say, Nigerian men, when they travel outside of this country,
They're proper.
They are the ones that are sweeping the floor and cooking the food and going to the market and changing the baby's diaper. And then when they come back to Nigeria, they put their leg up.
That brings us back to the culture thing. That brings us back to the culture
see,
thing.
if
The
you
fact
ask-
that they believe that is how it's supposed to be. We all just agreed now that we grew up with our parents, knowing our dad, when he finished eating, he probably just relaxed there. And either if we're old enough, we'll clear the table, or our mommy would do that because that's what is permissible at that time. However, we agree that things are changing.
This is 2019.
Things are
Right.
supposed to be changing. And like, who was it said? Men are more hands-on now. The younger generation of men are more, tend to be more hands-on. But I would put this blame, I'm sorry, nobody get offended, on that generation of mothers.
Yes.
Who would make every son that little prince, that little king, that his older sisters have to worship.
Exactly.
Wash his clothes. He will clean
I'm
his
sure
shoes.
they're laying eggs
You
right now.
understand? Mothers are particularly fond of that nonsense of a
Real
certain
nonsense.
generation.
Real
yeah?
nonsense.
Such that even when another woman comes into the picture as the wife of this person, they have difficulty letting go.
Yes.
How come daughters-in-law never have issues with their fathers-in-law?
Ask me.
I mean,
The
it's a
that
question.
I've always asked.
I've hardly ever heard any girl say, my father-in-law this, but mothers-in-law, come on. At some point you knew you're just raising this man to hand him over.
So now you have a problem with the men assisting me in the house because you feel it's the woman's job to
do
take
that.
care of the house. But then now that I am working, I am assisting the man financially, pay the school fees, and do some other chores that the man culturally should be doing. And you don't have a problem with that? Is that not hypocrisy?
It is. I said to you earlier that the script of equality has not been written.
Okay.
has not been written.
Because we need to change. One thing, 30 seconds. Because if we're talking about the things men do that we do not like, what is that one thing I would want a man to change this? So they have some advice. Now you know what we don't like. Maybe you can change this and won't like it.
I want the men to be more romantic and pay more compliments. You have beautiful women out there, and you see them, they look good, but you don't compliment them. And then they go out there and some other guys compliment them. You're actually digging a hole that you fall into.
Thank you.
Now, financially, when it comes to finances, you can take care of your home, you can take care of people outside. Put your home first. Don't tell your wife, wait, or tell your children, wait, I'll give it to you later.
Yeah,
When
but
somebody calls you-
outside.
Okay, one thing I thought we'll talk about, and we didn't, it's here now, is that women don't like when you pay attention to your ex. So, and you may not really be attached to them.
We
It's
didn't
a
even
very,
That's
a very big one. If men, we know that sometimes you may not be romantically involved with your exes. Don't let us know, even if you're having some discussions with them. And it's even better you stay away from them, because an ex is supposed to be.
Don't find X. It's not mass.
Firewood, all firewood, they see the catch fire.
It's not mass. Just leave X alone. Don't find X.
And for me, the entitlement mentality of thinking that you have the right to touch me, that needs to go out the door.
Fantastic.
The list is endless. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Out the door. So, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. We've had an amazing time having this conversation, and we sure believe that you enjoyed it as well. We'll be back next week with another interesting topic. Make sure you stay right there, because we're looking forward to share our time with you. And for some reason, we didn't get a guy to come on set to do Defense Academy. It's okay. I'm sure they learned. Did you learn? The idea is we don't hate men. We love men, but we want to love them more. So the little things you do that makes us feel like maybe not is what we've told you. So take them away so we can love you all over. I'm sure you like that. My name is Rita, and many thanks to all the fantastic women in the house today. Dr. B, Chi, Shehu, and Divan. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome to the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We're live in Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Anne Jibuno. Now the headlines. President Buhari signs executive order to promote good governance and effective service delivery. Alteration bills. INEC chairman expresses worry over interpolitical parties, rivalry and confrontation. More bronzes stolen from ancient Benin Kingdom to be returned to Nigeria. A culture of accountability and transparency in the pursuit of good governance and effective service delivery to Nigerians has been institutionalized. This follows the signing of Executive Order 12 by President Muhammadu Buhari, aimed at improving performance management coordination and implementation of presidential priorities of the federal government. This President Buhari warned government officials against abandoning governance for electioneering, as any infraction will be viewed seriously. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo has the details.
This signing by President Muhammadu Buhari of the Executive Order 12 to institutionalize the culture of transparency and accountability for good governance in Nigeria brings to an end the two-day retreat aimed at closing the gaps towards delivering legacy projects, promoting sustainable economic growth and improving the living standards of Nigerians. And as the President says, it has been a well-spent 2 days of reflection and lesson learning aimed at reviewing progress and agreeing on key actions that will ensure that
as this retreat in setting the nation on the path of sustainable development while improving the well-being of our people. Notwithstanding these achievements, there are still unfinished business that we must speedily complete to ensure we finish well. We must, therefore, endeavor to close every gap in our implementation efforts to ensure the attainment of set targets by 2023.
President Buhari therefore issued specific directives to the ministries overseeing key sectors of the nation's economy to step up, double their targets. The retreat, he says, helped everyone to clearly identify what needs to be done and how best to get it done. As
the consideration and passage of key legislative bills as agreed during the panel session. This will serve as our collective legacy towards entrenching key reforms that will serve as a springboard for the next administration.
And the commencement of the electioneering campaigns towards the next general elections notwithstanding, the President says all ministers, permanent secretaries, and heads of government agencies must remain focused in the discharge of their duties.
Any infraction will be viewed very seriously. Our collective goal is to map out a transition plan for the incoming administration to ensure proper documentation of all the policies, programs, and projects of government with up-to-date status of implementation.
During the closing ceremony, Finance Minister Zainab Ahmed gave an overview of Nigeria's National Development Plan. Chief of Defense Staff General Lucky Irabo discussed the imperative of national security as it affects national development, while Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, made public recommendations from the retreat as well as the next steps.
The Nigeria Agenda 2050 is a prospective plan designed to transform Nigeria into an upper middle income country.
Of security issues such that we think Nigerian and act Nigerian.
The Central Delivery and Coordinating Unit will support Mr. President to track all the of the administration's tenure.
Former President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, who was the guest speaker at the opening of the retreat on Monday, was on hand to witness the closing ceremony in solidarity with the Nigerian leader. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
The review of the 1999 Constitution stated this at the committee's joint briefing. Ignatius Nkwo reports.
On the 1st of March 2022, the National Assembly voted on 68 constitutional alteration bills. 44 were passed by both chambers of the National Assembly. On the 29th of March, 44 of those bills were transmitted to state assemblies. 24 state houses of assembly are constitutionally required to pass the bills, but 6 months after, only 11 states have considered and passed them. The Joint Committee attributed the delay to the position of Conference of Speakers of State Houses of Assembly, which insisted on the inclusion of 4 bills, including state police.
State police. 2, a bill to establish State Judicial Council. 3, a bill to streamline the procedure for removing presiding officers of State Houses of Assembly. And 4, a bill to institutionalize legislative bureaucracy in the Constitution. It is legally and constitutionally inappropriate for the Conference of Speakers to use the 4 bills as a quid pro quo to act on the 44 bills the National Assembly has transmitted. Please permit us to use this opportunity to appeal to prevail on the Conference of Speakers to withdraw their threat to truncate the Constitution amendment process.
We'll be ready to commence the process of making sure that the autonomy for local government, the autonomy for the judiciary, and the autonomy for our legislature is actually approved. Why would government bypass administrative autonomy for local government and deny financial autonomy?
Abia, Akwa Ibom, Anambra, Delta, and Edo states are the state assemblies that have voted on the bills. Others are Kaduna, Katsina, Lagos, Kogi, Ogun, and Osun states. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Well, that's the much we can take of the news at 10 today. We thank you. All right, we now continue with the news. The engagement of presidential candidates by northern pressure groups has ended with meetings of other 2 presidential candidates to discuss issues of national interest. The session hosted presidential candidates of the ruling APC, Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and that of Labour Party, Peter Obi. Umar Arjingi reports.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Northern elders raised issues of security, economy, agriculture, and power. While responding to these issues, the presidential candidate said addressing them is key to national growth. He said it will require collective effort in solving them. Ahmed Bola Tinubu believed the country can be out of the present situation. All is needed is a pragmatic leader with political will.
What I am bringing to the table, a good experience, can-do attitude, thinking and doing it. Our economic plan, we utilize the vast natural resources we have through strategic investment in infrastructure, which will lead to the diversification of economy and wealth creation across the country.
Presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, told the gathering that Nigeria is blessed with both human and natural resources. All is needed is a leader who understands the dynamics of globalization. He said the nation's unity in diversity is a strength and critical to its survival.
Nigeria is not breadth of ideas. Nigeria is not breadth of ideas or breadth of manifestos. There's very good reading manifestos. There's very good reading ideas in Nigeria. If you go where they're packed, there'll be for them. What is the lacking? It's the institutional weakness that is not allowed to deliver them and in the political way.
Conveners of the meeting described the engagement as fruitful, which will allow for informed choice of suitable candidate. In Kaduna, Umar Ajingi, NTA News.
Well, that's the much we can take of the news at 10 this morning. We thank you for staying with us. We now link up with our outside broadcaster crew for a live program.
Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to most sincerely welcome you to this forum. Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, with your kind permission, I will quickly recognize some of the dignitaries we have, if it suits you. It suits you. Okay. I welcome all the chief executives and parastatals of the agencies, essays to Mr. President, directors from the ministries that are here, relevant stakeholders, editors, and very senior media correspondents that are here, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I will just run you through what we have as our program for today. The Honorable Minister of Information and Culture will be setting the tone for what we are doing today, after which the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, will now make a presentation for 50 minutes, after which we will now go into question and answer segment. Please, when we get to the question and answer segment, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, if you are accepted to speak, please you tell us your name, the organization you are representing, and please, we'll appreciate if you restrict your questions or your comments to the issues to be addressed by the Minister of Works and Housing in his presentation. And please, let us be decent enough in the use of language. I welcome every one of you and thank you for your understanding. Having said this, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to respectfully request the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, to please set the tone by way of opening remarks for this program. Honorable Minister of Information, sir. Thank you.
The Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN, CON. The Honorable Minister of State, Works and Housing, Honorable Umar Ibrahim El Yakub, Directors, Minister of Information and Culture, Directors, Minister of Works and Housing, DGs of parastatals under the Ministry of Information and Culture, ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, I want to say good morning and welcome to this press conference. This is the first edition of our new series entitled PMB Administration Scorecard 2015-2023 series, designed to massively showcase the achievements of the President Muhammadu Buhari administration. We have, over these years, highlighted these achievements via town hall meetings, press conferences, radio and TV documentaries, media appearances, and testimony series. But as the administration winds down, we believe it's very important to consolidate our efforts at showcasing these achievements. Hence, we have designed a number of programs, including the series starting today. In the weeks ahead, we will be unveiling other programs in this regard. Gentlemen, in the words of President Muhammadu Buhari, my coach, this administration has implemented high-impact projects across the length and breadth of the country. that meet the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. And this is in recognition of the importance of critical infrastructure in economic development and the quest of this administration to leave a lasting legacy, end of quote. Today you will hear about some of these projects in the area of critical infrastructure from the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing, who is starting this series. Subsequently, we hear from more ministers and other top government officials about the strikes in their various ministries and sectors, including transportation, social investment program, economy, communications and digital economy, power, petroleum industry, defense, health, agriculture, youth and sport, trade and investment, fight against corruption, water resources, aviation, and justice, just to mention a few. In the domain of politicking, naysayers have attempted to play down the massive and unprecedented achievements of this government. Some presidential candidates have even released a poorly done photocopy of this administration's achievement as their own blueprint. For the series we are starting today, we will leave them breathless and clueless as we cover all the achievements in the various sectors. Because we have so much to showcase, the frequency of these briefings will be high, and this will run through the remaining part of our tenure. Despite attempts in some circles to downplay the achievements of this administration, I have no scintilla of doubt that history will be fairer and posterity will be kind to us. Those whose trips have been shortened and smoothened by good roads and bridges will remember the government that built those roads and bridges. Those who use the modern terminals at our airports will remember who built them. Those who ride on modern trains along Lagos-Ibadan, Abuja, Kaduna, and Itakpe-Warri will not forget those who made that happen. And the 9.8 million school children who are fed daily, the 1 million youths that have been empowered, as well as the 500,000 who are undergoing trainings under the Empower, and the 1,632,480 households that have been enrolled in the conditional cash transfer program will not forget that government. On this note, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, it is my pleasure to invite the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing to make a presentation, after which we take your questions. Honorable Minister, please. Thank you very much. As I was delivering my address, the Minister of State, Science and Technology, Honorable Iketuku Ilolu Ikoko, just came in. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers. It is my pleasure to be here, and there's quite a lot to report, and the time allotted is quite generous, I must say, but I would try to perhaps be more efficient with it so that perhaps we can have a better interaction. A monologue that this presentation probably represents will not ideally respond to some of your concerns, seeing that essentially the whole of the diversity of Nigeria is represented here. But let me start by quickly perhaps making a preemptive announcement, and that is with regards to the very sad and devastating floods that are impacting many parts of our country today. It's really a very grave matter, very tragic in its human and economic cost. It's going to require an all-of-government approach from local to state and to federal governments to deal with it. It's going to require an all-of-nation approach also, perhaps something similar to the way we responded to COVID, where everybody plays a role, because really everybody is impacted one way or the other. All I can tell you now is that in the last 2 weeks, all our controllers in the 36 states have been mandated to go out, measure, assess, document, evaluate costs of replacement, rehabilitation, where necessary, and restoration. So, as you know, we've been in a retreat for the last 2 days, so we finished late, and I won't get to the office until after this. But we are having an interdepartmental meeting, I believe, tomorrow at 2 o'clock to receive that report. We're already in touch with our colleagues in the National Assembly also, who are also concerned. So it is when we do all of this work and we can quantify the cost in terms of resources that we can work with the National Assembly to begin to dimension and the heavy human and goods logistics that go with festivity. We want to be in a position to make that as lot, because this is nature, so we wait for the floods to recede a little bit. So, but just to be quote now. So, not covered in this report in detail. So, again, I'm trying to preempt questions. So, that is a photograph of the finished. For those who are concerned about that, finished. What remains is the link road. There's a 4-kilometer link road. We have to build the road by reclaiming sand. So flood has slowed us down there at the moment. So we're waiting for the water to recede. On the Onitsha side, there's a 7-kilometer road visited. We had covered about 5 kilometers out of the 7 asphalted. So we're still racing against time. We've lost some time now due to nature, but we keep going. But in terms of the bridge, the crossing completed. And those who've been there know that you can walk the length of the bridge on both sides now unimpeded. But it's just to make the connection. So Kanu Highway, this is a 3 large, it is heavily built. Here you call environment to build, to relocate people, to move communities who have settled by the roadside. But this we do on a painstaking and enjoying basis, working with the Minister of FCT, whose territory is impacted. They must move those people away. You know also that the government is building the Ajaokuta Kaduna Kano gas pipeline. It cuts across parts of this road. So again, that is slowing us down in some places because we want to wait for the pipeline to be laid so that we can build the road instead of having the road cut again to lay the pipeline after we have finished. Just to give you some heads up about what's going on there. So if you go on, this is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Again, a lot of progress also has been made here. We're just around the toll gate in Ibadan, on the Ibadan side. Again, we are suffering delays right now. The Oyo state government is building a drainage channel across the road. So we're having difficulties. Their contractor has slowed down. We have slowed down also because we don't want to finish the road, then they cut it again to build drainage. On the Lagos end, we are working on the last 6 kilometers into Lagos. That is a very, very highly densely populated area. We left it for the last because we knew it would be the most difficult. So again, bear with us. We are hoping that very soon there will be relief there. But otherwise, we have covered essentially the distance from after the long bridge all the way into Ibadan now. That distance takes you barely an hour to travel. The Bodo Bonny project. Bonny Island is where our NNNG is situated. It's one of the places where very vast resources are produced into the economy of Nigeria in terms of natural gas. But for centuries, this place, without what you see now, there has never been a road into Bonny from Bodo. This is in Rivers State. There has never been a road for centuries. This is the island, Opobo area, where the famous King Jaja of Opobo used to dominate centuries ago. This government is building a road and bridges of 39 kilometers combined into that island. Now you will see the bridge slowly being launched. This will be finished sometime when we have left late in 2023. Just to provide optics, before now, whether it was water, it was soap, anything you wanted in the island of Bonny had to be ferried by canoes and flying boats. No vehicle could cross. That will end by next year. So these are some very heavy projects that I just thought I should preempt our conversation with. So if we go quickly now to the body of the presentation and just to highlight what we have there, and just to say that I want us to understand, and this has been quite an issue, because when we're talking about infrastructure, whether it is roads, whether it is bridges, whether it is fiber for communication, whether it is classrooms for schools, clinics for healthcare, airports, and all of that, we are really talking about the economy. Because it is the total stock of infrastructure that determines how efficient that economy is. So if there are no roads to connect states, I mean, you can imagine, let's go to that Bodo Bonny. Just leave the slide here, it's fine. But let's just imagine a place where you cannot cross by road. So when I visited the place, they told me that when there is bad weather through the creeks into the Atlantic, for 3 days, nobody can move. Sometimes. Because the only way to connect is either by boats or by chopper. So just imagine 3 days of no activity. That cannot be a prosperous environment. So, and this is the same thing. So we're talking about Lagos, Ibadan. People used to sleep on that road. And so look at the downtime that it costs. Now it's an hour plus. 2 hours, at least you can go to Ibadan and be sure that you will come back the same day. So when we're talking about infrastructure, which President Buhari has made his focal point, it is really the economy that he's addressing. So it's more than just, oh, there's a road. And I will go into this. But let me now lay the background. So some of the things we are now showing, we're talking about our scorecard. How did we get here? And that is what this slide is about. So in 2015, when I did my ministerial briefing on the 8th of December, this was part of what I reported after I was briefed. And quote, the records that have been made available from previous budgets showed that the last time that Nigeria budgeted over 200 billion naira in a year for roads was in 2002. So I was giving this speech in 2015. So the last time we spent anything close to 200 billion naira was 13 years before I was minister. So, and the status report for that year was that all that was in the 2015 budget that we inherited was 18 billion naira. 18. So what can you do with that? So, and, you know, part of what I also said, out of that 18 billion, only 13 billion was released for all the roads in Nigeria. 2015, when this government came. And we had contracts then for over 206 roads. And there was outstanding payments of about 2.3 trillion that had not been paid. So that was the economy we made. What was this doing to the economy? Construction workers were laying off staff when we came. And what does layoff mean? Productivity declining. Is that not it? So 1,800 junior staff. Construction company. The second company had laid off 3,000 junior staff. The third one had 2,500 people to go. The fourth one had asked 4,500 people to go. Now, when you are laying off staff, what is happening to the economy? Where is it going, up or down? So, the seed of recession had already been sown before we came. By the way this sector was handled. So, and at the top of that presentation, that newspaper, Thursday, 14th June 2012, 3 years before we came, Okonjo-Iweala warns Nigerians to prepare for economic recession. This is not personal. We are going to go into a recession. So when I hear people say, oh, there was a recession under Buhari, yes, it was foretold. The seeds for it were laid before Buhari recession. Because we got out. So I will go from there very quickly to talk about, I think that's the fifth slide. So by the time we came, oil prices had dropped to about $38. All of us remember that. That is the biggest income source of Nigeria. Because it is important to set this context so that for those who intend to revise history, because it's not just easy to just come now and say, oh, this is where we are. We got here in a context. So if you go to slide 7, I believe it is, our government then did a few things. We expanded the budget. And I think the first budget that we got from 18 billion or so was about 250 something billion. So and I will show you the incremental part of that. But beyond that, the president now issued an executive order 7 to say that if private sector was able to, they should bring their taxes ahead and we will use it to build infrastructure that the public can use and the builder can use. And that's a tax credit scheme that has become very popular. Just last week, MTN, for example, decided that they were going to take over the Enugu-Onitsha highway. GZ Industries in Abia also said they were going to build industries in their area. Dangote has used it to build their Papa-Urushoki Expressway. And there are so many other interests that we are dealing with. But apart from that, this administration also went to take funding through the Sukuk. And we also took some loans. And for those who say, oh yes, there's concern about the loans, that's a legitimate concern to have. The question is, should we not do this? And is there any state that say, for example, okay, we don't want loan, so stop all the projects in our state. Is there somebody from any state who will raise his hand to say we should do that? So that's how, if you go to slide 8, what you will see is that our budget from 18 billion in 2015 went to 260 billion. But the activity that this government brought into financing public spending. And just for the record, that meant that there was a percentage increase of over 1,334% in public spending. Those were some of the first steps we took on our way out of recession. So you can see then from 2017, we concluded the process of issuing sukuk. That's in slide 9. And you will see that the sukuk, everywhere you go now, you will see those signs, the sukuks across the country, and you will see what is being done with the resources at our disposal. That is also, for me, some form of transparency and accountability. But don't forget, even the sukuk was not without its difficulties. When it was first put in the public space, some people said, oh, Buhari wants to Islamize Nigeria with sukuk. But when we ask people, is there any zone that does not want sukuk? Nobody raised their hand. So there was nothing Islamic about the sukuk except of the way that it was conceived as a special alternative to contemporary financing. But at the end of the day, it is not faith-based in whether it builds a Christian or a Muslim road. It just builds a road that all of us use. And you will see the impact there. In 2017, we did 482 kilometers with 100 billion. In 2018, we did 642 kilometers. In 2020, we did 757 kilometers. And these are roads that people are now using in one form or the other. So if we quickly go to slide 10, the president also created another fund, the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund. Where did these monies come from, you might wonder? Dividend from our shares in the NLNG in Bonny. We're shareholders there. I don't know what used to happen to the dividend before now. But this time the president said, put it in a fund, put it in NSIA. Let them use it to pay for Lagos Ibadan, use it to pay for Second Niger Bridge, use it to pay for Abuja Kano. Then some monies had been stolen out of Nigeria under another government years ago. This president went around saying, give us our money back. But the people too saw the money as free money. They wanted to keep it. So they put conditions. They say, well, you know, if we give you, who is to say that something will happen to it again? Okay, you know, the way we are going to give you is let us have an agreement that you put them to dedicated prayer. And President Buhari said, fine, I'm ready to sign that, just bring the money. So he nominated Lagos Ibadan, Abuja Kano, Second Niger Bridge, because the NLNG dividend is once in a year, so it wasn't enough to finish this. So that's how this PIDF was built. And I've shown you some of the results, so I won't dwell too much on it. You will also see in slide 11, the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme. I've told you what some of the private sector players are doing there. I've mentioned MTN, GZ Industries, I've mentioned Dangote. One of the players here is the NNPC through some of its subsidiaries. One of the subsidiaries is PTDF, Petroleum Trust Development Fund. You will remember what happened to the Petroleum Trust Development Fund in the administration before ours. It was a scandal. They took the money and used it for all sorts of unsalutary undertakings. It is very well documented. So if you go on Google search, Google PTDF, the first thing you will see when you Google PTDF is scandal. But what you will see now under the Buhari administration is roads. We are constructing over 1,000 kilometers, 600 and something billion provided through as tax revenues to government to build roads under the same PTDF where the money used to be applied for all sorts of slippery things. So again, so when people talk about anti-corruption, Buhari is not. What better evidence of a transparent disposition can you have? Sukuk roads, Sukuk identity, each one tagged, monies that have been taken out, brought back in, used for developmental purposes, monies that used to be used to buy cars for friends, now being used to build roads. Is that not consistent with the disposition and the commitment to say that we will be more transparent and find a way to push back on corruption? So I will go quickly, I think, to slide 15. Just to highlight for you, again, roads under multilateral loans, particularly China Exim bank loans. And a lot of debate has gone on about, oh, China is going to come and seize this, China is going to take back our country. But I think we all should take time to find out how many loans are there even in Nigeria. How many? In the Ministry of Works and Housing, we have only two. And even the first one has not crystallized, so we haven't even drawn it down. We haven't completed the process. The one that is running is the one being used to build the Abuja, Akwanga, Kefi, Lafia, Makurdi highway. Those who come from that part of town know that the road is making progress and we should complete it by April next year. So that's what the loan again was used for. Transparently, you can see the result. You can see what's going on there. The second part of the loan is being used is to build Makurdi to Enugu Night Mile and complete the connection between the east of Nigeria and the Federal Capital Territory by road. So much for China Exim loan. The other loan that was taken before our administration. It was an African Development Bank finance, and it was taken by the government of Nigeria and the government of Cameroon jointly after the Bakassi dispute, in order to further collaboration between the two nations to build a new bridge. I am able to report that this administration has completed that project. That bridge has been finished, and I think on the 2nd or 3rd of November, it will be formally opened for public use this year. So again, we have collaboration. I think I'm on slide 16. If you quickly go there, we have collaboration with the Northeast Development Commission. This was a commission created, I believe, at the onset of this administration to manage the unique problems of the Northeast. And those that are from those areas will remember the Maraba, Mubi, Michika, Madagali Road in Adamawa. The bridges there, you used to see, if you remember those photographs, I think it was in 2015, of bridges that had been damaged. They used to be shown on national network almost every evening. That is the consequence of war. And I tell people that the lesson from that is that nobody really must promote any violent environment. We must all subscribe to peace. You know the interesting thing about that bridge? It wasn't the insurgents who damaged the bridge. I met the contingent of the Nigerian army. They blew the bridge to cut off the insurgents in order to protect the people. So when war happens, nobody remembers about buildings. Everybody just focuses on winning. And therefore, things may have to be destroyed in order to win. And oftentimes, women and children then become displaced. They are the most vulnerable. So all of us must continue to invest in peace, because the consequences of war are really devastating. We are removed from the theater of war, but it is not a good experience. Those who have experienced it never want to see it again. And we must do everything in our power to ensure that it does not happen. But the good news is that those bridges have been rebuilt. And those from that part of the country, from Adama, will confirm that in our collaboration with the Northeast Development Commission. So if you hear that money is also being made available to the Northeast Development Commission, these are some of the results that I am able to share with you. So I'm just going to go quickly just to show some results, and we just flip through from pages 17 right to 21. These are just photographs of inspection, and just so that you might know, my directors here, my team members, ministers, we've drive this country twice, all the 36 states. We drive 12 hours every day from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. We've gone with journalists too. Some of you have gone with me. So we've done this twice. What we're now doing are spot checks, zonal meetings, zonal reviews. Honorable Minister is on his way. I think you are going tomorrow. So he will be doing the Northwest. I just finished parts of the Southwest. So our directors, zonal directors, we're just going out. But it just shows you what we have done in a nutshell. So go to slide 21, if you please. Now, I was talking about the economy, because this is important. What we're used to, or what we focus on, is the road is finished. But in the process to that road, there's a deep economic interaction that sometimes we don't see. So you will see here some of the things that we have had to deal with. So we have, this is just one link to the economy. And this link means that 512,505,000 tons of reinforcement, that's iron rod, has been bought and sold in the Nigerian economy. Now, let's pause. The construction companies don't keep iron rod, they don't keep building materials. So it is Lai Steel, if Alhaji Lai Mohammed has a steel industry, that will supply it. If you want diesel, it is El Yakub oil or petroleum and Ikomi cement that will supply all of this. So this is how the economy works. So that process has meant that so many parts of our economy have been impacted by that government spending. All of these funds, I've told you, has actually reached the base of the economy. And I will attempt just to explain to you the suppliers, the small industries, the small businesses. So we've had 40 million tons of coast aggregates. Those who run quarries will tell you what has been happening. It's the best kept secret. Nobody tells you. Everybody complains, oh, Buhari has not done anything for me. But business is going on in the quarries. Those who own quarries will tell you that. And aggregates for construction, fine aggregates, we've used 18 million tons. We've used 3 million tons of bitumen. We've used 51 million liters of petrol and over 1 billion liters of diesel. Now, all of these are supplied largely by Nigerians, by families, by small businesses, and so on and so forth. That's one economic impact. So let's go to this slide. Unfortunately, the graphics are not very, very pleasant to the eyes, but this is how we can fit it in. And I'm just going to quickly share with you 12 roads that we have finished, opened, commissioned. Some of them you will be familiar with. Lafia Ubi Awetunga Road in Nasarawa, Vandekea Ubudu Cattle Ranch Road between Cross River and Benue, Adejia Unguru Phase 2, Unguru Gashua Bayamari Section 1, Gombenuma Yola Road Phase 2, Kanu Maiduguri Road Section 2 between Shuarin and Azare in Bauchi, Kanu Maiduguri Road Section 3 between Azare and Potiskum in Bauchi, Section 1 of Sokoto Tambua Jega Kotangora Makera Road, that was 304 kilometers, Newe Uduma Road between Enugu and Ebonyi, Isoko Ring Road in Delta State, F1 Layerimo Iwaraja Road between Ekiti and Osun State. All of these roads total 896 kilometers. Ministers of the Republic have been representing the president in their various states to hand over formally upon this road. But that's not the story. The story is that at every commissioning, we actually send people out to find out how these roads have impacted their lives in their journey time. And the results encourage us that really President Buhari's commitment about infrastructure as an economic tool is working. The average journey time reduction has been 56.2%. So just imagine that what you used to do in 2 hours, you can now do in 1 hour. You saved 1 hour. You know how that turns into productivity? How that translates into well-being? Maybe 1 extra hour of sleep before you get out in the morning. And so when the president says that he believes that Nigeria can lift 100 million people out of poverty in 10 years, people expect, oh, Buhari is going to give everybody a job and handshake. No, Buhari is already reaching you. All of those supplying the quarry, the aggregate, the cement, the iron rod, those are opportunities for prosperity. And the opposite of poverty, is it not prosperity? If time is money, a policy of government that begins to save 56% of travel time is time available for other productive engagement. And so that is the way I understand it. But apart from travel time, it is also cost savings. So we've done the reduction in cost of travel. We already did that survey, and they exactly almost approximate another 56% in cost of travel expense. Of course, there are inflationary tendencies now that have eaten into some of those gains. But this is the way in which to understand what the linkage between infrastructure, the economy, and my quality of life is. And I hope that we will explain it to ourselves this way. But one more interesting thing before I leave this area. Everywhere that we have built a road, housing projects, or whatever, the value of land there has gone up by between 30 to 40%. That's not us. These are estate valuers reporting back to us that adjoining land has gone up by 30, 40. Who owns the land? Is it not the people? Who keeps the increased value? Is it Buhari? Has Buhari not reached that person if he has added to the value he can get for his land? And this is how governments work. And perhaps this is time for us to begin to assess and measure things properly in their impact. Now, I'm going to go quickly also to slide 24. And this slide just shows you the number of people. You know, I started by telling you about the number of people that had been laid off before we came. Now you can see the number of people that are now getting employed. We submit these numbers frequently, quarterly, and it was part of our report at the just concluded retreat. Now, go to slide 26. Let me just dial in onto this. No, so this is slide 26. This is one contractor, one of our contractors in the year 2020. One. And we have hundreds of them. So in this year of 2020, this contractor gave subcontracts to suppliers. 1,421 suppliers benefited from one contractor in this economy. One. And they disbursed 45 billion for items ranging from bitumen to laterite to sand to cement to reinforcement and diesel. But the economic story is not finished. It doesn't end at just give contract for supply. So let's look at the bitumen. In that year, they bought 24,000 tons of bitumen. You know what that translates to? 580 truck trips. 775,000 cubic meters of laterite translated to 50,000 truck trips. And I'm not going to take too much time. Let me close with the last one. 49 trucks moving by themselves. What's happening to them? Can you connect the employment? Can you connect the dots? This is what's happening in this economy. Because we keep these records. So, but slide 27 shows a very, very important but unseen part of job creation, and that is Engineer Ezedozi's department. Materials, geotechnics, and quality control. On every road, not only is the laterite, you can't use any laterite. There's a standard. You can't use just any water. You can't go and pour salt water to mix cement. He won't agree. And his staff won't agree. So we have 130 laboratories employing people doing different works, testing the quality of what goes into every road in this country. The contractors also have their own laboratories. And so all of the people who are skilled in these areas, geologists and all of them, and other disciplines are employed here without construction contracts, without PIDF fund, without sukuk, without an expanded budgetary commitment, without tax credit. These laboratories won't work and jobs would have been lost. But our number of laboratories are increasing. So far with what we have done. Now let me just now go quickly to slide 28. And I just call this what the people say. Because when we go on these commissionings, we ask people, what's happening? And I've given you some of the reports. So let me now give you just a few. This was when we opened Sokoto Tambuwa Jega Kontagora Road on the 25th of November 2021. Garba, a commuter and Koko resident, this is what he had to say. Quote, before the rehabilitation of the road, it took an average of 3 hours to drive from Jega to Koko. But that time has now been reduced to 30 minutes. That's what the person who uses the road said. Now, Ibrahim Musa is the secretary of the Cocoa Trailer Drivers Union. I am secretary of Cocoa Trailers Union. I am a driver myself. We thank the government greatly for the rehabilitation work. We promise to give it our 100% support. Before the rehabilitation of this road, it took us 5 hours to drive from Jega to Koko, and between 6 and 7 hours to Yauri. It is now 1 hour 30 minutes. Ibrahim Musa. The emir of Yauri, His Highness Dr. Muhammad Zayanu Abdullahi said, and I quote him, "I am grateful to the federal government for initiating and completing the rehabilitation works on this road, which was constructed in the 1970s and has never received any rehabilitation attention until the tenure of Muhammadu Buhari." End of quote. And the story is not different. So on the 29th of November 2021, when we commissioned the Vandekia Obudu Road, this is what Benjamin Uye from Vandekia, a driver, because we actually talked to the people who use the road. This is what he said. The road before this time was very bad, and our vehicles often broke down, got stuck, and driving along it was a challenge. For almost 10 years, our people suffered on this road. Accidents, breakdowns, and other problems associated with the road. But today we are happy. The road has been constructed and it is very motorable. And there are others, but I will just flip and share because of time. So this is a very interesting one. It is from His Royal Majesty Eze Daniel Njoku, D1J1 of Ezine, on the day we commissioned the Newe Oduma Road between Enugu and Ebonyi. He said, and I quote him, "I thank Mr. President for the completion of this road, Newe Oduma. Every indigene of Oduma could recall that in the past, if you wanted to return to Oduma, you will either come by a helicopter, or if you are coming in your car, you have to park at the neighboring Newe town and complete the journey on Okada. So you downgrade as you go home." But he says further, during the dry season, while traveling from Oduma, one had to first go to Newe on Okada with a spare cloth with which to change on arrival at Newe before continuing the journey, because you would have been overtaken by dust from laterite on your Okada. But he says, but today, these roads had brought Oduma to limelight. End of quote. So on the Azare to Potiskum Road, Malam Salisu Ibrahim Azare, a commuter, this is what he had to say. "We suffered on this road before. We can't even say anything about the difficulties we encountered on this road. It was one lane and in bad shape. We never thought it would be this good. Now it's very fine. I am very happy every day I apply this road and I come here every morning. Everything about this road, the roundabouts and the crossings are good. People are very happy about the work. I heard them at different places praising it. It's one of the roads people are happy with. Many roads passing through Azare and inside Azare town have been reconstructed now with interchanges, crossings, and roundabouts." End of quote. So those are just some of the snippets. And I will go quickly to slide 33 just to share with you that we are also investing in tertiary institutions owned by the federal government. I had cause to visit and speak at one of the tertiary institutions, and I saw how bad their state of internal roads were. And I recall that having schooled in Nigeria, I had a better experience, and I persuaded my team and they agreed. We persuaded the National Assembly and they agreed that we should do some strategic intervention in terms of roads across federal tertiary institutions. We're not doing anything big, basically no more than 2.2 kilometers of internal road network. But the impact has been very, very instructive. So we are currently in 83 tertiary institutions across Nigeria. federal colleges of education, federal polytechnics, federal universities, and all of that. We're in 83. And we have completed 66 projects in 66 of those universities. We have commissioned 46, and every year the number keeps increasing. But there are a few things to take away from here. Is that when you hear the conversation, oh, federal government is not spending enough in education, slow down and absorb it. The investment in education does not start and end with mainly what is core education. Investment in infrastructure that makes education more pleasant and more progressive is also an investment in education. And the results here will just show you how impactful this has been. So the executive director of one of the institutions, which is our National Institute for Nigerian Languages in Abia State, Professor Obiajulu Elumejulu, while the commissioning of the 2.1 kilometer road was being undertaken on the 18th of February 2021, declared, and I quote, "This intervention is unprecedented. It has raised the profile of our institute and confirmed to the naysayers that we are also a federal government-owned tertiary institution." End of quote. That's what it means to them there, that they are now federal. They have been recognized. At the University of Maiduguri Teaching Hospital, where a 2.5 kilometer internal road was also rehabilitated, the president of the Students' Union government, Comrade Hakuri Tamus, in his speech said, and I quote him, "This intervention is a big blessing to the academic community because the sandy nature of roads before the intervention made it slippery, and the school recorded a lot of accidents as students usually fell from motorbikes." End of quote. The Vice Chancellor of Federal University Dutse Jigawa, Professor Fatima Batul Mukhtar, in her remarks at the handing over of an 800-meter road on February 2, 2021, said, and I quote, "Before the rehabilitation of this road, students and parents had to park their vehicles outside the gate to walk down to the school in a pool of water." End of quote. That is no longer the story. And I could go on. There is more, but I think I will save time and go to slide 35. And these are just snippets of pictorials. We have a full report on all of this. Should you desire it, we can make it available, those who want to see, because we document everything that we do. But let me begin to wind down by going on quickly to slide, what number is that? The section on housing, 37. And just to say that, again, we are intervening in housing. We can't do everything in housing. Land, a major component, is a state responsibility, but collaboratively we are impacting through the ministry. The National Housing Project is active, providing accommodation for some residents in 35 states of the Republic now. But more importantly, as I told you about infrastructure, it is providing jobs for people. It is employing people who had no work before. And it is really their story that I believe represents the story of our national housing intervention, the story of people, of Nigerians. So on slide 38, I will tell you the story of Ado. Ado is the guy in the top left photograph there. I met him at the National Housing Scheme in Kaduna, Ado Danlami. So he told me that this housing project is in Rigashiku, those who know the area in Kaduna. So when we went on inspection, he came to me and said, "Look, Oga, please thank President Buhari for me." I said, "Do you know him?" He said, "No, I don't know him like that, but without this housing project, I wouldn't have gotten a job. That there was one girl he had been planning to marry, but he couldn't pay dowry. But because of his earnings from this job, it's an important story. He can pay dowry, he has married her, and a baby is on the way. Now, you see, Buhari doesn't need to shake hands with that man, but he reached him. And there are more. In the photograph beneath, Sani Isa, we met in Kano at the program in Gamagwari in Fage, Kano. So I interacted with him, and Sani Isa owns a cement mixer. You know that machine, the cement mixer. That's his investment. But he needs it to make money. Now, when our contractor got this job, our contractor doesn't keep cement mixer. So Isa Sani is a subcontractor. Every day that cement mixer is turning on site, Isa Sani goes home with 10,000 naira. That's the story. These are the human stories. So when I tell people that infrastructure is the most legitimate way to distribute wealth in a society, these are the faces of that wealth distribution. And there are many more of them. Now, this is another interesting story on page 39. This was in Oyo State. You can see the building on the right is now completed. The estate has been finished. But when we went on inspection on the 4th of March 2017, I met Mr. Emmanuel. And on the left there, you will see Mr. Emmanuel's mixer. And these prices change. So Mr. Emmanuel's mixer was being rented on this site for 20,000 a day. Mr. Emmanuel is from Lagos, incidentally. From our interaction, he told me he came to Oyo from Lagos. He got wind that there was work there. So he gets 20K every day that mixer is working. So that's 100,000 naira for 5 days, or 120 if you work until Saturday. But there is a more interesting story. I was sitting next to Mrs. Emmanuel. Mrs. Emmanuel has followed Daddy to the site. What does Mrs. Emmanuel do? She has taken over the supply of food there. So husband and wife on construction site. When I interviewed Mrs. Emmanuel, how much do you make from here? I said, well, a plate of food costs about 250 to 300 naira. And usually they eat twice. So I said, how much do you make? Say, well, at the end of the day, after all my costs, I go home with extra 5,000 naira per day. So times 6, times 4, you do the math. And with Mr. Emmanuel's daily 20,000. So people are finding their own way on this journey of our infrastructure. So it's more than just a building. It's our people, it's families, it's human stories. And these are just snippets of what we documented. So in Akwa Ibom, and that's the next slide, on the 22nd of March, I told you we go around. So at least you can see me in some of the pictures. So I met engineer Obosi. Obosi is a graduate of Federal University of Technology, Owerri, Futo. I think you know that school. So Obosi is not waiting for Buhari to come and hand him a job. He has found his way to this site. He's a graduate of metallurgy. And so, let me quote him. He said, I am the one handling the mechanical aspects of work here. We want to see more. We are most grateful. And he speaks in our language, and I quote him, I chop inside this project. What I chop inside is the mechanical implementation of the project. End of quote. At the site, same site, no, sorry, that's not the same site. In Delta, I met Obin Nauyeka. And again, I interacted with him. He was the foreman, the one in charge of all the workers on the site, earning their own living on that site. The Delta housing project has also been completed. In Mina, on the 28th of January 2022, I met Adamu Danjuma, and he was earning a weekly livelihood of 15,000 just as laborer. And the story continues on slide 42. This gentleman, unfortunately, I don't have a record of his name. This was a housing site in Ebonyi. He was trying to teach me how to paint with his roller. And you will see on the right side at the bottom, people, so from Mrs. Emmanuel cooking, the cement mixer, the metallurgy, that's the process to build the house. And what you are seeing on the bottom right is the houses now being handed over. That was Imo State on the day we did it. Some of the super eagles who were promised houses since 1994, 20-something years ago, who never got it, President Buhari approved, and all of them have been allocated their houses after 20-something years. So, again, all this infrastructure at the end of the day is really about us. They are human stories beyond brick and mortar. Now if you go to 44, very quickly, and I'm closing up, very quickly you will see we're just reporting. All of that national is just ministry. So Federal Mortgage Bank is impacting in housing. Federal Housing Authority is also impacting. Federal Mortgage Bank has introduced something we call now, it has done two things. So let me put them in context. And those two things are about affordability. So even when there is mortgage, usually there is a contribution that you have to make to be qualified for a mortgage. It's called your equity contribution. For homeowners who do not seek to borrow more than 5 million naira, their equity contribution used to be 5%. 5% of 5 million, I think it's 250,000 naira. But that's a lot of money even for some people. And they became ineligible by reason of the inability to raise 250,000. Working with our ministry, who supervises the Federal Mortgage Bank, the board sensibly proposed, and we approved, that the demand for equity contribution for loans up to 5 million should be taken out completely, and so is zero. You can get your loan up to 5 million without making an equity contribution. For those from 5 million above, it was a different proposition. Their equity contribution used to be 15%, but we couldn't make it totally zero. Again, we reduced that to 10% to make it easier for them, because they fall into a different income bracket. But more importantly, we have now introduced what we also call rent to own, so that the rent you are paying now, wherever your landlord is, God forbid, if you fall out with your landlord, you know you go away empty-handed and go to another house. But under the rent to own scheme, you are a paying tenant but a waiting landlord. Your rent becomes your accruing contribution to owning the house. As at August 22, I think the figure is that 717 people have already benefited. They are processing many more applications, but 717 people have benefited, and over 4-point-something billion has been disbursed to make people able to participate. Slide 45 shows you some of the houses being built by and so on, houses being built by Federal Housing Authority. I believe that this year we should open one of the FHA estates in Zuba, which is a 767 housing unit, blocks of flats at the closing stages. Yes, that's it on the top left slide. So let's just quickly go to 47 and talk through it. Again, we have just provided all the construction sites where people are working, 46 sites in 35 states and the FCT, a total of 6,022 housing units under construction, over 2,800 completed, work still going on. Direct jobs, 29,030 people. Indirect jobs, 57,874 people. Building contractors who won the contracts, 1,245 building contractors won the contracts. Now, those are the small businesses and Sons Enterprises Limited, and their families and the people who depend on them for a living, the people they employ. So 1,245 contractors supporting vast numbers of members of our national community. But the story of housing doesn't end here. It goes on to 48. And what we have to report here is the issuance of certificates of occupancy. Now, I don't know how long. I've seen some certificates of occupancy application dating back to 1992. We have signed a lot. As at the last record, we have signed 6,337 COOs. 6,337. Backlogs. But you know, the interesting thing, the lands department will now tell you what's going on in the economy. Because not everybody wants to buy government house. People also want to buy from one another. People also want to use their land to raise mortgage loan, but they have no title. So again, this is unlocking access to housing, these C of Os. And we are already seeing subsequent transactions. All of the C of Os I signed, I think, 2 years ago. Just this morning, I still saw one before I came. I saw one this morning, and there's a subsequent transaction. He too has sold to somebody. Government, out after one consent. So these are some of the stories. I think the way I like to close this presentation today is to talk a little more about land. Right now, the Federal Land Registry has about 48,000 files. 48,000 files in the Federal Land Registry. And it's all paper. So we've decided to digitize that registry. And so going forward, all our land transactions, when we finish digitization, is going to be a digital relationship. In order to do that, we have to scan every file. Right now, we have scanned, I believe, 43 point something thousand files, totaling over 2.2 million pages. So we should finish this year, and we will go live by the end of the year. So all our transactions in that respect will become digital. So we're almost done. But what will happen, you might want to ask. We looked at some of our processes. There were processes that required up to 50 steps in order to process a land document. Some of these processes are being reduced to 14, 10, and the time it takes, some of these things used to take 90 days. Many of them will take not more than 72 hours. That is the change that is coming in that regard. Let me go to slide 54, and I think that would be a good place, I think, to end it. 54 and 56. So we met some federal secretariat projects when I took office. They were in different stages of completion. Many of the contractors, the same story, had left site. If you had 18 billion for roads, how much were you going to have for housing? But the story has changed. As we are building houses for the public, we are also building offices for public servants who have to do this work. So many of our public servants who are in rented accommodation in some of the states will move, I think in the new year at the latest, to properly purpose-built offices in Yenegua, in Zamfara, in Bayelsa, in Yenegua, Bayelsa, Zamfara, Guzo, Lafia in Nasarawa, and in Oka in Anambra. All the buildings are done. Furniture procured. So we are just installing furniture and fitting some snags here and there. And once we finish, the last one that we are waiting to finish and sign off is Zamfara, so that we can then schedule dates for Mr. President to officially commission, open, and hand them over. But they also have stories of jobs. We met 24 federal secretariats in very different states of disrepair and discomfort for productivity. I think those who work in our federal secretariats now have a different story to tell. We have started facility management, facility maintenance in all the federal secretariats, and this is also creating jobs. So President Buhari says that maintenance is not a culture, it's an economy. That's why he signed Executive Order 11. And we are seeing the results, because each secretariat after rehabilitation now has a facility manager who maintains, cleans, makes sure toilets work, air conditioning, everything works. So each person that got a facility management contract also now employs people. Each one of them employs at least 40 people to maintain and keep the facility running. Those jobs were not there before this administration. These are again some of these human stories, and this is data to show it. And but you know, the interesting thing also, as you engage facility managers, maintenance goes on. You know where the money is going? The money is going to the markets, it's going to the supermarkets, because it means that you have to keep a regular inventory of cleaning materials, bleach, reagents, soap, detergent, sanitizers, rakes, broom, and so many things. You also need to maintain technicians who do heating, cooling, air conditioning, gardening, and so on and so forth. So these are jobs that were not there before we started this. And there is data about the number of materials. For example, 73,000 drums of paint is record that we are keeping. So these people also don't keep paint. So the market is being impacted. Wooden trusses 95,000, steel trusses 191, aluminum sliding windows 8,703, 214,000 square meters of wall and floor tiles, 243,183 blocks, and so on and so forth. All of this used to keep buildings in efficient and functional state of repair. There is so much to say, but I think this is a good place to put it to bed. And this, if you permit me, is just to explain what part of what the change agenda of 2015 was all about. Create jobs that didn't exist, create opportunities, make things better than they were, and essentially embedded in all of this is the human story. And I say to people, that is why we are progressives. Because everything we try to do is about improving the human condition. Thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Works and Housing. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when we started, I said the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing will speak for 50 minutes. But after 1 hour, it was very difficult for me to stop a moving train because I know he has so many success stories to share. Thank you so much. It was a very beautiful presentation. Thank you very much. Let's give him another round of applause, please. Let me formally welcome the Honorable Minister of the FCT, Malam Mohammed Musa Bello, CON. I welcome you, sir. Let me formally welcome the Honorable Minister of State, Federal Minister of Science, Innovation and Technology, Chief Henry Ikechukwu Iko. Thank you so much for coming. Very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we are moving straight to the question and answer section. Like I said earlier, when you are recognized to speak, please, you tell us your name, the media organization you are representing, and please restrict your questions or your comments to the issues addressed by the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing in his presentation. And please, let us be decent enough in our use of language. I want to thank you so much. At this point, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to declare the floor open for your questions, please. Please, you can signify by raising your hands. We'll take 4 questions in a row. Okay, let me start from here, sir. 1, 2, 3, 4. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. My name is Iyobosa Uwugiaren. I write for This Day newspaper. First, let me commend you for your beautiful presentation. As a matter of fact, I've traveled to some of this road that you are talking about. But there's one road that I want to draw your attention to, and that is Abuja, Lokoja, Okenen, Benin Road. As I speak to you, in the last few days, there have been protests by the youth, especially along Auchi, Ekpoma, Benin Road, because that road has become unmotorable. You can't pass that road, you know. But I know before you came in 2015, something was happening on that road. But since 2015, it appears that that road has been abandoned in spite of the commercial viability of that road, because a lot of trucks, a lot of commercial activities happening on that road. That is number one. Number two, maybe a bit personal. You talk about the quality of roads. Now, let me draw your attention to one road leading to my town, which is a federal road. Agbo, Abavo, Uronigbe, Obiaroko Road. That road, every year, your director in either Delta State or Edo State keep on awarding that contract. The one they awarded was last year. And within 6 months, that road became so bad. As I speak to you, for you to travel from Agbo to Abavo Uronigbe, you have to take Okada. You can't pass that road. For me to access my village, I have to pass through Wari, Abraka before I approach my village as I speak to you. So, what kind of quality are we talking about? When you keep on spending billions of naira every year awarding the contract, and that road will not last more than 6 months. Maybe you want to respond to that, sir.
The next question, please. Please, just ask one. We don't want twin or triple questions, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister.
I'm also a witness to some of the roads. I've gone with you twice to these project sites. And I'm really fascinated about the Niger Delta Bridge, a second Niger bridge. We walked through the bridge sometime in April or thereabout. So when is the bridge going to be open to Nigerians to use? Thank you very much.
The third one, please, at the back. At the back, please.
Honorable Minister, I must confess that we are impressed with what you are doing. At the end of your first tenure in 2019, we were at the Ministry of Work with your PAMSEC Buka to listen to your presentation and a lot of innovation that you have put in place. Straight to the question, my name is Akunle Kola Olubio. I've worked with you in the power sector. I'm President Nigeria Consumer Protection Network, and I'm a stakeholder. I'm giving you a feedback from member of the public. One, the Gwarimpa housing project is reputed to be the largest estate, if not the largest in Africa. But the mistake with Gwarimpa housing project is that proceeds from the sales of Gwarimpa housing project supposed to go into a revolving fund. I think we need to learn from that as a legacy for the incoming administration. Whatever housing project, it should not be a free lunch. The one you are having in Zuba, if money is going to be paid by primary mortgage institution or what have you, what structure or governance are we putting in place to make sure that the proceeds from such funds, because money is difficult to find, so that when we get that, it should not be seen for the day-to-day running of the governance structure that we may put in place, so that they will serve as intervention, revolving, you sell from it and use it to replicate, because we couldn't do that with Gwarimpa. That's on the housing. One, you talk about when you came on board in 2015, indebtedness, liability to indigenous contractor as a carryover effect from previous administration. Government is continuum, irrespective of the party in governance. Now we have 1.something trillion naira as liability to indigenous contractors under the Ministry of Works. FCT used to be notorious for that before the present minister. Now the point is, it is huge. Contractors that were awarded contract under the works sector 4 years ago, 5 years ago, they've completed their job. They've been issued certificate that is usually prepared by the department. What do we do, like the tax credit scheme, to make sure that if it's NNPC, if it's some of those people investing in tax credit, how do we clean up the mess so that it doesn't transit to the incoming administration? Liabilities, what is the status of liability today, and how do we address that?
Thank
Honorable
you.
Minister, thank you.
The last question goes to the DG Von. Thank you.
Honorable Minister, we have to commend you for your presentation. Kindly help to clarify this issue that comes up most of the time in the newsroom. One opinion says that at the inception of the regime, that President Muhammad Buhari cancelled all the road contracts and started afresh. And one opinion said he didn't cancel any, that he continued where the PDP ended. Did he cancel or did he start afresh? Thank you, sir.
Honorable Minister, maybe we just take the last one.
Honorable Minister, my question is very simple. You have accounted for your steward.
Your name, sir?
I'm Yusuf Ali. I work with the Nation newspaper. In summary, how many kilometers of roads do we have in the country? How many of them are impassable? How many have you repaired? And those ones that are not passable, how many are you passing to the next administration, given the timeline? And lastly, your colleague is sitting with you.
the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture. I'm quite sure his state is not approachable by road now from Abuja here to Kwara State. When you go from Kaba to Ilorin, the road is impassable. You go through Ekiti, he cannot reach home unless he flies to his state. What is wrong with federal roads in Ekiti, in Kwara, in Osun? Thank you. Honorable Minister of Information may wish to coordinate the responses. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your questions, and let me just set a context that we are undertaking nation building, and it is a very dynamic, involved process that passes on from generation to generation. And as much as we all wish that everything were done today, the truth is that not everything can be done in the life of any one administration. The important message from my presentation is that we have moved the needle on some of Nigeria's most difficult projects, and we are nearly closing them out. Lagos-Ibadan, Niger Bridge, Apapa Urushoki, Bodo Boni, roads that seem to defy possibilities. We have taken them on, and we're in control of them, and we will deliver as many of them as possible. So, in terms of specific of what will be handed over to the next generation, part of what I presented to you was our ministry already beginning to write our handing over notes. So we haven't finished. But when my colleague said, look, BRF, I need you to come and start this, I said, okay, let's present it up to the point where we are. By the time we want to go, I will invite you, as I did when I was living in 2018-19. And we will hand over our report. And I think that sets the context for the reply I will then give. Yes, we have problems with roads in Ekiti, and we're working on it. One of our limiting factors is revenue and budget provisions. And I have met with some of the traditional members there. I'm in constant touch with Governor Fayemi. The minister representing Ondo State, Adegoroye, is in touch with me. Alhaji Lai Mohammed himself knows the reality. It is what is appropriated. So most of the funds I've told you, for example, are extraordinary provisions by the president. So what's left in the budget is what legislators who finally approve the budget authorize for us to spend. Now, we have put the Akure-Ado-Ekiti road in the Sukuk. We are having problems with the contractor, and we are taking steps to remedy that. There's so many people we're interfacing with, and some of them, if they are listening, will bear witness. We will solve the problem. And also, we have issues in Kwara, but there are other roads coming into Kwara, Ilorin, Jeba, Mokwa. Some of the roads, they link Kwara. The road you talk about, the Kaba road, we were trying to finance through the tax credit. I believe that the design for that has been completed. The procurement process will start Some we will start and we cannot finish because of the time, but we will put in a sustainable place where the next administration can take it on. And that takes me to Osita's question about council or no council. I think it is foolhardy, really and truly, for anybody to come, and it is a behavior that as our democracy gets better will hopefully dissipate and will find less appeal. But for the record, President Buhari did not cancel or direct or order the cancellation of any project. He did not. Indeed, what he said was that as much as possible, go and complete what exists. And I've had cause to address this nomenclature about abandoned projects. And my conversation with people is, if you look at the meaning of abandoned projects, to abandon something, it means to forsake. We have not forsaken any project. But the truth is that there are not enough resources to finance all of them at the same time. So perhaps we want to redesignate the nomenclature to uncompleted projects because we have not forsaken them. They were designed for certain constituencies. As the revenues improve, priorities also. So perhaps in choosing what we do, if you look at this, we shared with you in the first time what we wanted to prioritize. We had 6 urgent priorities at that time. And you will also be able to glean them from the 9 priority areas of the conference of the retreat we just finished. One of our priorities was roads leading to ports, so that economy can move. We can decongest the seaports and the airports for efficiency of business. So that was a priority area, and you will see many of these roads either connect a seaport or an airport or something contiguous, or they are roads leading to prolific agricultural producing areas. That was a priority for us. Then there were roads leading to mineral producing areas and strategic petroleum depots and roads used for distributing petroleum products in order to ensure energy security. Then of course we prioritize roads where we had international multilateral contracts, and that's why I was speaking to you about Akwanga, Kefi, Lafayette, and all of those things. We also prioritize connecting roads inside tertiary institutions, and we prioritize bridges. So we've talked only about 2 or 3 bridges here, but there's bridge maintenance works going on nationwide. New bridges are also being built nationwide. We didn't have time to talk about the Loko Oweto Bridge or the Ikon Bridge or the Ibi Bridge or the Buruku Bridge that are all being built. So there was no time to talk about all of that. So each administration sets priority. You can't solve every problem. But priorities where the ultimate objective is, how can you do the greatest good to the greatest possible number in the shortest possible time? So in terms of indebtedness, yes, this indebtedness figure is a moving target. So when I started in 2015, I didn't share with you the debt owed to contractors. There were debts, we met them. I didn't share with you the debts owed to state governments. That has been largely paid. We paid almost $1 trillion to all the state governments across partisan lines. Those were debts incurred by the previous administration, approving for state governors to build federal roads and saying that they will reimburse them. So we are also in this week, I've told you the challenges we had this week. Myself, the PAMSEC, and the Minister of State have been largely in retreat from Monday. We will go back to the office now, tidy up our paper, because we are preparing for budget defense. And we will share with you the final details, because those are not records I keep in my head. The Director of Finance and Accounts and the other directorates will submit a list of all their outstanding liabilities to see how we find a way for them in the budget or make appropriation for them. So that's the only way I can supply those kind of figures, not from my head. I regret to disappoint you. Gwarinpa, the point is taken about the need for a revolving fund, but also understand, please, that we operate in an environment of rules and regulations. So if any housing estate is sold today by us and proceeds come into government, they go into special dedicated accounts under the Treasury Single Account Directives. They become revenue to government. Because when you are making the budget, you see the revenue and the expenditure side. So when we are executing now, we're dealing with the expenditure side, awarding contracts. When the revenue comes back, we must account for it because there were projected revenues of what will come in. And it is from the pot of treasury that really government can say that this is what has come in, and it is going either to pay workers' salary or it is going into capital expenditure and so on and so forth. Perhaps with organizations like the FHA, which is not, which is essentially a commercialized agency, we will take your message on board, but they keep their fund really, so they have ways of stratifying their funds now. Before now, when they did Gwarinpa, of course, it was a different story. Well, the commitment I made about the second Niger bridge at the retreat was that before this administration goes, it will be fully operational. I made that commitment. I stand by it. But what I was targeting was to see whether we could open it before Christmas. That's what I was targeting. And I hope I am properly understood and properly reported. My target was for Christmas so that it will give us relief around that area. I've spoken to you earlier about what we do. We have this Ember Month plan. The purpose is to plan for the large commuter movement that happens in Christmas. So one of our plans was if we could open that Niger bridge even before commissioning for people to use so that it relieves that sector in the same way that we were planning that we would open part of the Oyo-Ogbomosho, about 30 kilometers that takes you inside Oyo. You can now bypass Oyo going to Ilorin from Ibadan. We are hopeful also. But I reported to you about the Niger bridge that right now we can't walk there, it's flooded. So I don't know when the flood will fully subside and when work can restart. But I reiterate my report to you. The bridge is finished, but we need to access the bridge. And that is what we are working on, and we will do our best to try to solve it. But as far as handing it over before end of term, take that as given. That will happen. The question is, can it happen earlier? The first question about the Agbo Obiaruku Road. Well, I do apologize and sympathize for the experience you have on that road, but I think that we need to be careful to allege, for example, that billions were spent and the quality of road is not good and so on and so forth. What I know and what the engineers will tell you is that every road has a specified design life. And it is built with that specified design life for a specific axle load bearing capacity. That is, if you use it properly, the way it is designed to be used, it would last you this number of years. Once that number of years is finished, that road needs to be rebuilt. And when we say we are rebuilding a road is built from the base, what is called the sub-base. We're talking of laterite. So you have to first remove everything, which is what is going on Abuja Kano, which is what is going on Lagos Ibadan. You see excavation. All of that laterite cannot be used again. So you need fresh laterite, recompact, and then you put cross stone, and then you put asphaltic whatever, and you put the binder and the wearing cost. That's what it takes to rebuild a road. So what you were reporting, probably just rehabilitation to make the road motorable. If the base of the road is gone, no matter how you repair it, it will give temporary relief. When rain comes, and that is when you really feel the impact. Once water enters under a road, it's gone. But axle load abuse also shortens the life expectancy of the road. And these are things that we are trying to enforce. Proper use as distinct from abuse. So what you are probably talking about have been rehabilitations just to improve it. Let me give you an example. When we were going to shut down the Abuja airport, we did a rehabilitation of the Abuja-Kaduna road. We documented every change. That's the language of the engineer, so I can borrow it. But that's at each kilometer where the pothole was. We filled them up. People traveled. 5 months later, there were potholes all over the road. So there was a public petition that, how can you say you did this road? It's all opened up. But the road had finished its design life. That road was built in 1991. If you calculate, it's over 25 years. It's finished. You have to rebuild. So when the petitioners petitioned, we invited them. We now showed them what we did. Kilometer this, kilometer that, and kilometer this. And we sent our team to go with them. Every place that we intervened about 5 months prior was still intact. But new potholes had opened up. And again, we documented, and they said, oh, they were sorry. They didn't understand it. So we had to explain to them, a road that has reached the end of life is like an old piece of cloth, your shirt. You know the fabric is gone. So when you move like this, it will rip here. You will patch it. The following day, it will tear here. That's exactly the analogy to understand what we're dealing with. And I hope it explains. So, even in the bad weather, rainy season, we'll try and provide relief. We can't surrender and say we can't do anything. But that doesn't mean we have built that road. We're providing relief to keep people going. And that's what responsible governments should do while we plan the reconstruction. And that takes me to Benin, Eho, Auchi, Okene, Lokoja, because that's really the route. Now, we've done Benin to Eho. It's a better road now. It is the section between Auchi, really, that is really the problem. The problem we have there is that there is nowhere to drain water. That's the problem. So the contractor has slowed down. If you build that road and you don't get rid of water, you are losing the road in less than 5 years. Because water destroys roads. So we had thought of a bypass, which was going to take about 40 kilometers, but whose land do we pass through? If you get to after Auchi, the contractor there, Mother Cat, is working. That section is good. The section in Lokoja side was finished first. So these are the realities we deal with, and that is why we embrace these interactions, because it gives us an opportunity to really explain what our problem is. Abuja, Lokoja, Okene, yes, we have problems there. We just awarded the contract, and we also put it in the sukuk. It was built before we came. It has failed, so we are reconstructing it. We also notice, I'm trying to forget the name of the school, and that is the side where there is no cargo. The other side, when it is cargo bearing and ramping up a slope, puts pressure on the asphalt, and you have what is called rotting. So we've done a new design. We'll have a new contractor there, and you will see relief when the work is complete. Thank you very much. I want to, at this point, thank the Honorable Minister for those explicit explanations. I thank our ministers. I thank all the chief executives of parastatals, directors from the two ministries, ladies and gentlemen of the media, this is the much we can take for today. We want to thank you so much for your time. We have come to the end of this forum. May we please rise as we take the national anthem, please. Thank you. God bless you.
NTA, you can't beat the reach. Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News Model app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News Model app. No access to real-time information.
We've had. Having said that, I would say that there's need for us, one, to even see the audited account of the CBN. I don't believe in the last 3 years the CBN has even ever presented us with an audited account. At least not since I've been here in this chamber. I, for one, think that the 2023 budget, really, if we want to really fight the incremental and trying to curtail a lot of the corruption, should not be more than 10% of the previous year's budget of 2022. I think there's also a need for us to look at a way where maybe the government seeks some kind of concessionary funding of, let's say, about $40 billion at not more than 4% per annum with a tenure of about 20 years to pay all the ways and means of that we hear that almost about 20 trillion that the CBN has issued over the years. And to also insist that the exchange rate does not exceed about 5% differential. Mr. President, all these definitely will have an effect on all the waivers that have been granted, where we may have to look at the subsidies that we don't have a choice, but to find a way to phase out. And also, we need to also find a way to curtail the oil theft. Just as my colleague said, Mr. President, 8 trillion been spent on government bureaucracy, government spending is way, way too high. There's need to find a way to bring that down if we want to get ourselves out of this quagmire that we find ourselves.
I've listened to quite a number of the submission of my colleagues, especially the submission of Senator Ndume. I will not want to repeat some of what he has said. Mr. President, there is global economic recession across the world, and it's affecting nations in quite a number of ways. Nations are finding it difficult to meet the needs, the aspiration, and improved standard of living of their people. Some weeks back, for the first time in our time, so to speak, I saw in London people demonstrating, complaining about the hard economic situation they found themselves. And I wonder if they have to come to Nigeria and compare what they call harsh economic situation. I don't say this, Mr. President, to buttress the fact that there is no nation in the world today that is not coping with economic challenges. In our nation, Mr. President, let me be a bit specific. In the last few years, efforts have been made by this government to provide infrastructural facilities that will help to move the economy forward. But we must thank God that things are changing now, because all the effort of this administration was beclouded by the insecurity situation we find ourselves. People find it difficult to go to the farm. Traveling became a problem. But we must say that things are getting better, and we hope it continue to get better. Mr. President, I can see that the proposed borrowing is for capital projects, and I think that is good for our economy. If we can work towards improving economic development through the facilities that are required, that will increase productivity, because the budgets must be aimed at wealth creation, diversification of the economy. And I think that we will still be waiting for the executive to look at some economic measures that will help to complement the proposals we have before us. For instance, Mr. President, there are still goods and services that we do not need to import any longer in our nation. In this country, Mr. President, people import all sorts of things. Some of these goods that are imported, you wonder how the money came in. I mean, how they were able to move this money out. But again, Mr. President, you will agree with me that a lot of resources and wealth have been taken out of Nigeria by quite a number of privileged people. So in the course of our borrowing, it is not out of place if our federal government decide to look at the possibility of having some economic diplomatic ties in this direction with nations of the world, to look at money that have been supported from Nigeria in the last 10, 15 years, especially those that came from people who have held public office. And again, in this country, Mr. President, if you go through the bank, you will see a lot of fixed deposit in foreign currency. So our nation do not need to import, to beg for money much. Let us search within us. Let us look at the banks. People who have deposited hundreds of millions in dollars and pounds in banks lying fallow. We should beg them to borrow the country back, because the country is bleeding now. And if we have to move forward, I'm sorry if I will be stepping on toes by my comment, the perspective at which I look at issues may be different. But I hold the view that some banks have foreign currencies of Nigerians that are idle. So the security agency should look at banks holding foreign accounts of Nigerians in idle fund, doing nothing. The time has come for us to save our country. I also would like to lend my voice to to the debate around the budget. And I will want to support, I'm very much in alliance with what most of my colleagues have said. And I believe very strongly that this budget, this particular budget too, is influenced by the global issues arising from COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia. And I'm sure, and those are part of what has also led to some of the underlying assumptions of this budget. But on my part to being faced with this reality, I still think that part of what we still need to do is to find a way to moderate the issue around the deficit. It's still very large, and if we are to be also take into cognizance the level of debt that we already have, and the amount of our yearly revenues that is also being used to repay the debt, I think that should continue to remain a source of concern. So for me, I would believe that the guidance I would like to give is that we should still try and find a way to stretch most of the government-owned enterprises as to how best we can still get some revenue from them that can help us moderate the impact of the deficit that we are being confronted with. That is one. I also agree with those who have also spoken about the need to also try and moderate the issue around cost of governance. I also believe that it will also help us
with the deficit that we are being confronted with. And lastly, my contribution again would be to also try to alert ourselves to the projection and the assumption under the inflation provision here, which is about 17%. I think that that again, we should also try to see how best we can speak to this. And on my own part, I think that a major cause of the inflation, just like we know that we have the issues around the supply and demand distortions. But more importantly too, when you are speaking about inflation in this country, part of the problem again is the quantum of money that we have in the system. And to me, it is largely influenced by the ways and means procedure that the CBN had adopted in the last few years. I think that at this point, there is a need for us to rise up and challenge the way and manner the CBN has been going about this. If we look at the CBN Act, what it allows the CBN to be doing on a yearly basis to support government spending is just 5% of prior year's revenue. And even when you are going to even when you spend the you allow or make the provision for the 5% of the prior year's revenue, you must clean up the one you had given. What has been happening in the last 3 or 5 years is that we've just been accumulating. People have spoken about our ability to just to repay interest. They have also alerted us that the issue around the principal is a major problem. And if we know that over 70% of our revenue today is being focused, is being put into repayment of loans, I think that we should begin to challenge some of the steps taken by the CBN. We have today we hear that our debt stock is about 41 trillion. That is aside of the entire sums that has been granted under Ways and Means, which is in itself about 20 trillion. Now, this budget that we are looking at, we know that typically we don't meet the revenue target. The next thing you are going to find is that the Ways and Means should come in. I think it's about time we begin to challenge the authority around the way and manner the CBN is going about the Ways and Means. It is not going to it's not going to help us in the long run, and more importantly, we don't even appropriate. We don't approve the lending done by CBN to the federal government, and it is part of what is fueling inflation in the country. So for me, if we want this country to become a productive economy, I think that the focus around inflation should be a major issue that we should concern ourselves with.
Ordinarily, annual budgets are intended to be improvements on previous budgets. But from the discussions that we have had so far and from the debates that we have had on in this House chamber, it would appear that we are still where we are, and we are not making very significant progress on our way. Mr. President, in the year 2022 debate on the general principles of the budget, the same problems that we complained about, the problems of our wobbling economy, the problems of our insecurity, the problems of youth unemployment, the problems of poverty, still rear its head or their heads in this same debate. It means, therefore, Mr. President, that we must have to take some drastic steps to work on our economy in such a manner that we will have the funds to fund our budget. Mr. President, let me also state here that there is a lull in the insecurity situation in the country now, and I'm very convinced that it's because Mr. President has developed the necessary political will and made very tough pronouncements on the insecurity that we're having this lull, and hopefully in that manner we hope that Mr. President's promise of abating our insecurity by December will come into fruition. But having said that, Mr. President, I'm a little worried about the infrastructural deficit that we have in this country. Mr. President, from the debates that we have had so far on the floor of this Senate, our roads are still in very deplorable situations. Last year, Mr. President, I complained about 3 artery roads in my constituency the Otukpo-Makodi road, the Otukpo-Oju road, and of course the small 8-kilometer road from General Hospital in Otukpo to Enugu roundabout. It may interest you to know that in recent times, our youths are taken to the streets to block us from entering the town because they hold us responsible for the non-completion of those roads. And so, Mr. President, I think we must think seriously about our budgeting system, because as it is now, we're on the envelope system, and as my colleagues have indicated here, it's the same problems all over again and again. And so how can we diversify our economy? How can we create the platforms and institutions for the employment of youths? How can we even alleviate poverty when all we are doing now is not creating institutions that will accommodate people and provide relief for our poverty, rather than creating organizations and institutions and programs that just throw money at people? That won't solve our problem of poverty. And from all indications, there is no effectiveness even in the disbursements of these funds anyway. And so, Mr. President, education is key to all national development all over the world. And today I can say that rather than improve on our allocation to education, will educational allocation continue to dwindle? I'll give you a few examples. In 2020, the allocation to education was 6.2. In 2021, it came down to 5.6. And in 2023, as we are seeing now, we are talking about 5.2. And so, Mr. President, if we are not investing in education, then of course we are not getting the point. And as UNESCO has posited, by 15 to 20% of our allocation, annual allocation in the budget should go to education. But we don't go even near half of it. And of all other countries that belong to the same bracket with Nigeria, Indonesia, India, Egypt, and the rest of them, only Nigeria allocates less than 20% of our annual budgets to education. And if you come down to even sub-Saharan Africa, we are competing with very small countries in allocation to education. Countries that have less endowment in human and material resources. And so, Mr. President, I think that we must choose our priorities very correctly. Otherwise, we will continue to talk about this budget year in, year out, and we will not get the results. Because the envelope system allocates money to these same projects to be done in the same way. And like I said, you can't be doing the same thing all the time in the same way and expect a different result. And when we go out, our people don't know the difference between legislators and executors. They think that all of us are in government and we must solve their problems. And so if we don't address this problem of the budgeting system, we'll continue to have the same problems without finding solutions. And I want to say here that Nigerians are no longer interested in good ideas, beautiful ideas, grandiose ideas. Nigerians are looking for solutions to their problems. Nigerians are looking up to people to tell them how they are going to solve their problems. And they look up to us representing them here to solve their problems. And they want to know how. And I think we should use this period now, this last budget of the tenure of the 9th Assembly, to make a statement to Nigerians that we can provide solutions to their problems. Thank you, Mr. President.
Over the last 3 years that we have been debating the budget here, I have always cautioned on the level of debt that we are taking in this country. And we have gotten to a stage where, in fact, almost all our revenue that we are earning will go into servicing our debts. Mr. President, if you look at every economic index, you'll find that over the last 7 years, the indices have all deteriorated. Is it the inflation rate? Is it the debt level? Is it the exchange rate? Is it the employment level? All these have deteriorated. But Mr. President, I would like to focus my contribution on the issue that we have debated on this floor today and last week. And that is the problem of flooding. Mr. President, when 2 years ago, this country was faced with the challenge of the COVID pandemic, we did everything possible to tackle the problem. We mobilized resources. We imposed restrictions. We set up a presidential task force because we are confronted with a serious problem. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the flooding we are having this year, to me, is more grievous than even the COVID pandemic that we faced 2 years ago. Mr. President, I would like to look at the details of the budget to see whether there is any provision in the budget for the dredging of our inland waterways, specifically River Benue and River Niger. I would like to see whether there is any provision in the budget for construction of buffer dams, for construction of dikes and embankments, to control the flooding. I would like to see those things, Mr. President. So, in short, I would like us, if there is no provision for that, I would like the relevant committees of the Senate and the National Assembly to make provision in the budget starting from the 2023 budget for the dredging of our inland waterways. Thank you, Mr. President.
There was this argument that perhaps the overheads are too much, or even the personnel. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think this is where inward the various committees must wake up from the present spate of their work, in the sense that, for example, we pay personnel. What is the level of scrutiny of the various personnel, nominal role in terms of staffing? Why do we have a situation where the idea of maybe ghost workers, some people getting double salary, some people even not being civil servants but they are collecting salary, which somebody was trying to point out about the weakness in the platform. I think there is a Senate committee that is saddled with the responsibility of looking into that. It's high time they go deeper than just collecting the list. They should go further to find out how people are enrolled and who are those who have been enrolled, because they will see the gaps. So, Mr. President, I want to refer us to Section 88, where in subsection 2B, we are charged to expose corruption, inefficiency, or waste in the execution or administration of laws within our legislative competence and the disbursement or administration of funds appropriated by us. Mr. President, this singular provision expects that, for example, the personnel, that constant repetition of purchase of computer, purchase of stationery, purchase of all kinds of things. To what extent have we properly scrutinized and done due diligence on this? Mr. President, this is one of the fundamental areas where, if we are talking about leakages, we must begin to look at. When an agency buys equipment or office equipment and the like, what is the what do they call the life span of that equipment? Is it 2 years? Is it 3 years? How are these equipments rolled out? How are they disbursed? Or is it what do they call it? Disposed of, rather. So, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I think that is the area where, going further, we need to properly scrutinize. And I will say one thing: the budget template is also a culprit to this. Filling in those things, whether they need them or not. And at the end of the day, I bet you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, when December comes, those funds will be expended. So I think we need to begin to find out, how do we reform this element? Otherwise, the waste we are talking about in terms of yearly repetition of this, annual, or is it a line budget as it is, will continue. And I think, given the fact that now we are very hard on resources, it is time for the Senate to wake up. I think that is the various committees of the Senate should do due diligence as far as these issues are concerned. Otherwise, we will still come back here to repeat the same thing. Now, finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the question I would like to ask is, when we are faced with these kind of situations, if we don't borrow, what do we do? I guess we don't have an answer to that. But of course, when we borrow, we should target them on areas where our productivity and efficiency can be raised. That is what we need to do. And I'll also say, with respect to procurement, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we've done so many things to enhance our procurement process. But the NTAs are still honestly frustrating government so that we are not getting value for money quoted by service providers. 3 months, 4 months down the line, award is not granted. By the time award is given, the prices of most of their items have changed. So which means in terms of even the speed, or is it the speed at which we do procurement, we are shortchanging government and making more resources to go to waste. So I think, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we should put an eye on that.
I would like to start by commending the executive for the timely submission, presentation of the bill. I would also want to congratulate the Senate in advance, because I believe that we will do the best we can and ensure that we pass the bill before December, as Mr. President had promised, our President had promised. My concern is basically in 3 areas. The first one is the ratio of capital to recurrent and personnel costs. The money we still spend in the budget, what has been proposed, is still about 30% of the total budget, which is very, very low compared to the recurrent expenditure, the estimated recurrent expenditure. As long as we continue to maintain this low estimate for capital expenditure, I don't know how we can progress with infrastructural development. So I think it is an area that we need to look into. Secondly, is the revenue being generated by the 63 government-owned enterprises. I believe the enterprises can do far better than what they are doing now. So I would like to advise strongly our finance committee to do the needful and ensure, liaise with relevant government agencies to see how the revenue from those enterprises could be improved. Thirdly, is the issue of agriculture. We all know the problem of agriculture. In this country, we still don't have food security as we should. The United Nations had warned that there is likelihood of food shortages in the next few years. What are we doing as a country? We are still budgeting less than 2% of our budget to address the issues in agriculture. The Malabo Declaration had recommended a minimum of 10%, and we are below about, we are just about 2%. That is on the very low side. I think going forward, we need to do the needful, and I will advise strongly, if there's anything that can be done to see how the money that is budgeted for agriculture could be improved upon. We have a lot of security challenges in the northern part of the country, where farming where a lot of farming is being done. We have a lot of challenges in those areas. Now we have flooding. Even in the central area, north central area, we have a lot of flooding, which has affected a lot of farmlands. What preparation does the country have to address the issue of food shortages? I think these are the areas that I believe we need to look into going forward. Thank you very much for the opportunity to add my.
I want to start by saying that this year's budget has been christened as budget of fiscal consolidation and transition. And I want to strongly believe that the name given to this year's budget is very, very instructive, which has to do with fiscal sustainability and transition, since by the time of expiration of this budget, we will have been in a new administration in its entirety. Mr. President, for my colleagues who have made contribution to this year's budget and who have expressed fears in some areas that are very critical and very important to this year's document, I quite agree with them, as all of this was extensively discussed during the passage of the medium-term expenditure framework upon which this year's budget was predicated upon. Mr. President, we are in an unusual time, and it's not only about us as a country, it is global. The current economic downtrend that we are witnessing as a country is not only peculiar to us as a nation, as a country, but it is global. If you go into the records, United States of America, the supposed #1 countries in the world, today their external debt stood at over 31 trillion naira. Dollars. $31 trillion. South Korea, that will have been categorized as some of the developed nations in the world, today their currency is free flowing, going downward against the dollars. The United Kingdom, their economy is crunching. They are looking for a way out of it. The new Prime Minister today is not finding it funny because the economy is not doing well at all. So to us on this part of the divide, I quite agree with my colleague and feel their pains and the fears that have been expressed concerning what can we achieve with this budget. And Mr. President, the blames that can be put at the doorstep of the executive who have prepared this document will be minimal, because some of the challenges that have confronted us as a nation are self-inflicted. For instance, on the issue of the oil theft, on the issue of lack of the ability to meet our quota system that have been allocated to us as a country, and insincerity on the part of some of the revenue generating agencies as to what should be remitted to the accounts of the government. When you look at all of these indices, you will quite agree with me that some of these are self-inflicted. And if you look at this document, only 3 major items that I can say, yes, if we can work around effectively and adequately, I wouldn't say this budget is a bad document. Number 1, the issue of the subsidy regime. This is one area that I believe, for once, that we should do everything within our power to look at. Because how do we explain? We know the quantity we are importing to the country, but we don't know the quantity we are consuming as a nation. If we can address this situation, amount expended on subsidy regime will drastically be reduced, and it will definitely reduce our so-called deficit. On the issue of the deficit that we currently have, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I won't say that bulk of this was as a result of this administration. Don't forget that this administration has to carry the burden of debt that other successive administrations have brought forward. Since the big business of government is continuum, we have no other choice than to walk within that tightrope. We need to service our debtors at when due, or else the countries who are yet to give us this debt forgiveness and other issue will tag us as to have defaulted in our promises. I want to commend this administration who have been doing this with little or no challenges, even though at the expense, at the detriment of what will have been brought together to constitute the dividend of democracy as a nation. The last but not the least is the issue of the exchange rate differences, which the budget was predicated upon 437.57, but what we have in the parallel market is about $720. This is another important area, I believe, that we should bridge the gap. This exchange rate differences is on the high side. It doesn't reflect the true position of our currency against the number one currency in the world, which is dollars. If these three items are adequately attended to, which I believe that the government of the day is working around the clock to address these issues, I think, Mr. President, will have a very good document, a very good budget that we'll all be proud of. But that as it may, the document is currently before us as the National Assembly to work with. And I can assure you, at the end of the day, when the Committee on Appropriation will have worked on this document, and by the time we are returning, maybe we'll have a budget that's at least that is well balanced, that a lot of work will have gone into, a lot of amendment and reamendment will have been worked around to ensure that at least we have a fair budget, so that incoming administration can have something to build upon when eventually the administration is sworn into power.
I also agree with all our colleagues who emphasize on the need to reduce the budget deficit, to ensure that we generate and collect more revenues, and also to block leakages, and in fact look very critically into areas where we can save some money. Specifically, some of our colleagues mentioned the recurrent side of the budget. I think we can look at the non-personnel side of the budget proposal, where it is necessary we make some savings, even if to reduce the deficit of the budget. But I believe that we are, as a country, in a very precarious situation where we have to borrow most of the money to fund our budget. I commend the federal, the president, President Muhammadu Buhari, and the administration generally, that the drive to provide very critical infrastructure across the country has been on since 2015. This is very essential, and clearly that requires that we have more and more resources to fund the development of the infrastructure across the country. Our main source of revenue is in serious trouble, the oil and gas, because of oil theft and other heinous crimes against happening in this sector. I believe that we must take very drastic measures to ensure that we salvage our revenues from the oil and gas. I also believe that those agencies of government, like our Committee on Finance, presented to us when they work on the MTF. Some agencies of government are really spending money that ordinarily should be in the coffers of the federal government. So we must take appropriate and necessary actions to ensure that we don't allow that to continue, because now every quibble counts. Penny wise, they say pound foolish. We can't afford to be that with our revenues. Definitely, things must change. Of course, we cannot run away from borrowing, but like most of our colleagues have said, when we borrow, the funds must be targeted at developing the infrastructure. They must be for capital. So our committees must look into the budget estimates presented to us very critically to see areas that we can make some savings and also see areas that need more attention. And when I mention more attention, is the security of lives and property is the main purpose of any government. And therefore, that must continue to occupy a leading position in our focus to make provision for the 2023 appropriation, because we have to create the environment where direct foreign investment can flow in, or where even our citizens who have the resources can invest in our country. And that, of course, is very, very essential for us to continue to do. Lastly, the 2022 budget implementation is important. When our committees will consider the 2023 appropriation bill in the defense, let's see what has been expended, how. Because I believe that we need to complete some of these major projects. And instead of just entertaining new projects all over without providing sufficiently for completion of projects, especially important projects, shouldn't be a priority to us. I believe that this is our final year, and as a final budget for us, we must ensure that we reduce the incidence of abandoned projects. Already there are so many abandoned projects for over maybe 40, 50 years. But I believe that what we can do is to ensure that those ones that we have been funding and are nearing completion, we're able to complete them so that we have the legacy of having funded those projects. The desire of this Senate and indeed the National Assembly, the National Assembly, is to consider and pass the budget before Christmas, before the 25th day of December this year. We did this feat before. In the previous 3 budgets we passed, we considered and passed the budget before the Christmas. And that enabled the executive arm of government, the president particularly, to sign, to assent the appropriation bill before the end of the year. And then the implementation would ensue in January. I am sure that we can manage working very, very hard to scrutinize the budget, as well as ensuring that we're able to pass the budget before Christmas. We should not neglect the need for scrutiny, serious scrutiny, at the altar of passing the budget before Christmas. But I believe that we can work hard as well as ensuring we pass the appropriation bill before Christmas. I want to thank all of you for the various interventions you have made, and our committee on appropriation, particularly the chairman. You have listened to most of what our colleagues have said, and very soon, maybe from today or from tomorrow, all the committees will now accept the appropriation committee. All the rest will be subcommittees of the appropriation committee. So we want your committee, the appropriations committee, to ensure that this budget, being probably the tightest budget as far as provision for capital projects is concerned, in this our tenure, we have to be extremely critical of any budget proposal, because every kobo counts. With this, I will put the question Those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation a total sum of 20 trillion 507 billion 942 million 180,704 naira only, of which 744 billion 109 million 468,797 naira only is for statutory transfers. 6 trillion 557 billion 597 million 611,797 naira only is for debt service. 8 trillion 271 billion 882 million 354,405 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 4 trillion 934 billion 352 million 745,705 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2023 and for other matters connected thereto. 2022 SB 1062, second reading.
A bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation the total sum of 20 trillion 507 billion 942 million 180,704 naira only, of which 744 billion 109 million 468,797 naira only is for statutory transfers. 6 trillion 557 billion 597 million 611,797 naira only is for debt service. 8 trillion 271 billion 882 million 354,405 naira only is for recurrent non-debt expenditure, while the sum of 4 trillion 934 billion 352 million 745,705 naira only is for contribution to the development fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2023 and for other matters connected thereto. 2022 second reading taken, and this bill is referred to the Committee on Appropriation to report back within 4 weeks. Thank you very much, distinguished colleagues.
And that is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of the program from the National Assembly. I am Ignatius Unko. Enjoy the rest of our programs.